Okay. See what time is it? Call to order 6:46.
Yep.
Armand Gorbani, Danilo Toro,
Here.
Lisa Philadelphia,
Here.
Eric Nakamura, Jamie Keaton,
Here.
Jay Handel, Jay Ross,
Here.
Jin Shigematsu, Jennifer Gavinia,
Here.
Gian Karendian, Naomi Kagiyama is here, Ron Migdal,
Yes.
Rosie Kato,
Here.
Partho Kalyani, Jana Blisovic. Okay, we have none, we have quorum.
Okay. Is there any public comment? Any calling cards? And I don't think we have any community partners here with us tonight. So, well, that moves on to the approvals agenda.
Yeah, there's one big one and then there's two small ones.
Move to approve minutes.
There's been a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Any opposition? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay, there's one abstention, the minutes are approved.
Who abstained?
Rosie. Next is the MER reports. Is there a motion to approve?
I put the motion to approve.
It's been moved, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, is there any discussion? Any opposition? All those in favor? Any abstentions?
How many abstentions too?
Rosie and Jennifer. All right.
Thank you. Okay.
It's so nice that you brought a copy. I mean,
So sweet.
Wait, where are you going?
look at the scent.
That's
You bring it
all
away?
fun, Mr.
All right. Item C on the approvals agenda is support of the SPA 5 homeless count. Is there a motion?
What's item C? I don't have it in front of me.
It's the motion to support the SPA 5 homeless count.
So that's a financially
Sure.
supported or?
No, that's to give our support, like, because there's a second item, which is $40 for refreshments.
So moved.
Moved, there's been a second, is there any discussion? Any opposition? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Or, sorry, there were no oppositions, any abstentions? Rosie, all right. Next item is $40 for refreshments for the volunteers at the SPA 5 homeless count. Is there a motion?
Say again?
To give $40,
Oh, yeah, moved.
is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay. Next is item E, draft and send letter to all the city council members and file a CIS in support of the November 22nd council action, our council action, to strengthen and improve protected tree ordinance 177404.
Discussion.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move that we do that.
Okay. There's been a motion and a second. Hello, Jean. Now is there discussion?
Yes.
All right, I got Ron. Anybody? I know we have Linda here. So we're gonna hear from. Okay. Okay, we're gonna have Ron, Naomi, and then Linda. I'm gonna let you hopefully answer their questions.
There's a copy in the packet, everyone. It's actually under revisions, the sidewalk where that's probably, same, it's related to tree items.
Yeah, that was, to clarify, that was the included on the plum agenda, which is item 8 and D. Yeah, thanks, Jay. Okay, Ron, go ahead.
Yeah, just so I know I'm speaking on the right thing. Is this the one there where there's a moratorium on removing trees?
Yes.
Okay, so I think we need to have an exception to this, and I'll tell you exactly why. We don't want to get ourselves in a trick bag on this. There's a tree on the sidewalk of Stoner Park, and it's got the sidewalk broken so terribly. I've tried to go over it on my scooter. I've twice gotten high-centered, and I once got knocked over. It's really treacherous. It's really horrible. And if we declare a moratorium on removing all trees, then any such menaces that we have on a sidewalk cannot be dealt with. So I would request that we have an exception for those cases.
Okay, Naomi?
I just wanted to just make a comment about filing a CIS because I wasn't sure that, there was an actual wording because I think after talking to Jasmine, it's like we need the full wording of a CIS and the board vote. So I just wanted to clarify that because it was a little unclear to me. And I'm sorry, what number was that? I thought I had everything.
It is, it's in, actually, I think what you're going to be referring to is in item number 8D, which is the sidewalk repair resolution. Right, is that right, Jay?
Correct.
Okay.
But there wasn't a separate one just for it.
There's not a separate one just for E, because that request came in separately from Rosie after Jay had already given me his request.
Right, and I tried to do the recommended resolution in the format of CIS that's on the DUN website, so hopefully that'll be sufficient for our board if they choose to approve it.
I would also like to put myself on the queue about that particular sidewalk that you're talking about, Ron, because I've also flipped strollers off that sidewalk. But I think that there are other solutions than just cutting down the tree. They could repair the sidewalk, in fact. They could just pave around it, they could raise the sidewalk.
Actually, the roots are so high, they would have to raise it tremendously.
Well, what they do in Santa Monica is put those plastic flexible things around the tree roots to do that. So I think there are solutions to doing it.
Okay.
So that would be my thought. I don't mind adding something though, if you're moving to add something about the slope for ADA. I mean, it's not my motion, so I don't care, but.
Yeah, I'm actually moving to put an amendment in the motion to make an exception for ADA hazardous sidewalks.
It's been moved to amend. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on the amendment?
So I have a question. Are you saying that the sidewalk is not repaired? It's still as is? Because I believe I've driven by there and it's already been repaired.
It's
No, it
not. I
hasn't.
was there
I've been
2 nights
there-
ago.
I was there today. I've been trying to get this done for 2 years. I was promised it would be done this month, and nothing's been touched.
So who were you promised by?
Bonan's office.
Oh, let's hear from Naomi actually, or sorry, I was looking at Naomi. Let's hear from Linda to see what she has to say. She might be able to address this issue since we're discussing the amendment to the motion right now. Go ahead, Linda.
So I just wanted to clarify at this point that there's might be a little confusion between two different agenda items. I see that under 8D you have an item about a sidewalk repair resolution, and that's an important issue, but it is a separate issue from what I'm here to talk about, which was item 3E. And item 3E is not at all about having a moratorium on removing trees. So it has no impact whatsoever on sidewalk repair program.
Okay.
Go ahead. I just wanted to clarify that since
So
you're talking
can I
about
ask-
having an amendment to a motion, that it's not perhaps.
Can I ask if it's not a moratorium on removing trees, what is it?
We have an existing, what's commonly referred to as the Protected Tree Ordinance, 177404. It protects 4 species of native trees, or it was intended to protect 4 species of native trees. Oaks, California sycamore, western sycamore, California bay, and Southern California black walnut. It was intended to protect those trees, but it's not actually in effect doing that because there's a loophole in the ordinance that these trees can be removed for the reasonable development of a property. And so what's happening to a great extent under the current conditions of the speculative development boom that's been going on for the last 5 years or so, especially in the hillsides, is that developers just have to apply for a permit to remove these trees, and those permits are routinely given. So the ordinance is just not doing the job that it was intended to do. So the motion that was put forward on November 22nd by council members Koretz and Bonin is essentially about strengthening the ordinance so that it can do its job of actually protecting those trees, which are very important for a variety of reasons. And also, as part of that strengthening, to look at expanding the species that are covered under the ordinance. You might think, for instance, well, how does it affect you guys if oaks and walnut trees are being removed in the hillsides. I mean, there are ways that it does affect you, for instance, you know, health and air quality issues. But another part of strengthening the ordinance is to look at expanding what is covered. You might have had experiences, for example, I think there was a recent issue that some of you might have been involved in, I think Rosie was involved in, to do with the development of the mall at Gateway, and that involves the removal of some trees. There might be trees in your neighborhood that are significant trees that are important to your neighborhood that are not currently protected under the current ordinance. And so there's an intent to look at expanding protections as they do in some other cities, for instance in Pasadena, where you include trees based on size.
Great.
So with that clarification, I'd like to stand by my amendment.
All right. We have to withdraw the motion because it was the wrong one, so
Yeah.
I apologize, I mixed up these.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. I will put you
Yeah.
on the queue, Rosie, but the first issue is since we don't actually have anything written in the form of the CIS, then this item cannot be to file a CIS. It has to be changed to draft and send a letter to all city council members in support of the November 22nd council action. And then it gives the file number to strengthen and improve protected tree ordinance. Because we can't file a CIS if we don't have the language to vote on the CIS of, and apparently we don't have that language.
Can we do it to write to CIS based on the standard language
Well,
on the DUN
And
website?
can we include the amendment in the CIS?
If we're going to do that, what I suggest that we do is take it up at the next meeting with a full CIS. And then we don't need Linda to come back, we've all heard about it. Ron, I think you can spearhead that since you have something you want to add. Rosie?
But in the meantime, can we write a letter to support the motion that was passed by, or was introduced by Coretz?
Sure.
So the thing is, actually, there's some clarification because the ordinance for the protected trees actually ends up being a how-to, like an exemption on how to remove protected trees.
Well,
So that
so-
was the whole point behind having the
Okay,
motion.
so
passed.
if it needs to have more of a discussion, well, first of all, I think that we need to be provided the ordinance to be able to vote on it. We need to be provided a CIS. We need to understand what it is that Coretz and Bonin voted on. We need to be very clear about what is and is not covered under that. So I don't think that this is appropriate. At this point, I don't think we have enough information to make an informed vote on whether or not to support what Coretz and Bonin voted on. That's my opinion.
Agreed.
Okay. Other than Rosie, is that the general consensus opinion? Okay.
Well, we could,
Move to
we just,
postpone it
we have
to the next meeting.
another just general discussion. There are a few points I'm aware of related to this that are relevant. Like in Agora Hills where my office is, there's a extremely old oak tree. Its canopy is probably 80 feet and our office building is built in a mill around it.
Here, I think that all of these are pertinent to talking about whether to file a CIS and what motion we should have. But I don't think that that's the discussion we're having right now, because I think that Ron's going to write us a CIS, and that's what we're going to discuss next week. And then I do want to hear about the Agora trees,
Okay.
the Agora Hills trees.
So kind of there are two issues here. So one would be to come back to write a letter of support for this motion, and then also the CIS as well too.
Well, it would be the same. It would be the same motion next month when we have the information.
How can I get a copy of the ordinance to write the CIS?
Should be provided to us.
Yeah.
Have you emailed it to us already? The ordinance and,
Okay, great.
yeah.
All right, perfect. So there's been a motion to postpone this until the January meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any opposition? Any abstentions? All those in favor, I assume, is everybody else.
Excuse me, can I get the name of, can I get your name so I can put it in the minutes, please?
Linda, Linda, Woodford, WHITFORD.
Thank you. Okay, well, that takes care of the approvals agenda then. Thank you very much for joining us, Linda. I appreciate that. Okay. Item number 4 on the agenda, motion to add additional $33,355.05 to the outreach budget.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, let's take a look at what it's for. Is it in here?
It's just to put it in as a parking space. That's the money from last year
Okay.
that Mike Bonin swept the hold for
Right.
us. So we need to park it until we can then sit down and budget out how we want to spend that money. I caution everybody here, if we don't spend it all by June 10th, the city takes it back. So we need to have a budget meeting. Everybody needs to come up with their wish list, get it to the budget group, and then we can mill through it, adjust our budget accordingly, and get these projects moving. Because I hate like hell to have used a good marker with Mr. Bonin and then lose the money in June because we don't have projects and community benefit things to work with.
I have two questions. Why are we moving this entire amount into outreach and not other categories?
Because we
But
haven't
also-
had a budget meeting,
But also, who's on the budget committee?
myself and
Because
Jamie.
That was us last. I mean, we can elect a new budget committee
I don't
next
know that
week.
it was reinstated though, because as a part of EE, I know that only outreach chair was established. And that was kind of pretty much it.
Well, I'm the treasurer, so I have the money at this point, and we can agendize next meeting to add people to the budget committee, but for now, we have money we have to park.
And
I
I'm
have
also
to
a
do
de facto member of every
Right,
committee.
and I have to do a budget, and I have to send it in to make it legal. So I'm gonna suggest that we move forward with this, and then we can do whatever we need to do after that, but clock's ticking, guys.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion?
We could always move it again later, and also election outreach should start next year for 2019 elections, like the sooner the better.
Right.
So you might end up using more than you think for outreach, more than usual, because it's preceding an election.
Naomi?
Yeah, actually, I think Jasmine answered my question, because I was hoping that we could change it. Maybe some of it could go to neighborhood grants, or a portion if we don't, if we
Yeah.
can't come up with.
We can amend the budget every month if we want, by
Yeah,
the
you can
board
come with-
vote,
Yeah.
Okay,
but we just need to park it somewhere because it's already in our account,
yeah.
and it's in undefined at this point.
Any further discussion?
Can a portion of that be allocated to office supplies or equipment at least?
Well,
We have enough money in
Yeah.
office supplies and equipment right now to get us through the next 30 days,
How much do we have currently?
a few $1,000s.
okay, then I think we're ready to vote on this. All those in favor of moving the $33,355.05 into the outreach budget, please raise your hands. 2, 4. All right, oh, is that everybody? Wow, all right, good work, guys. Okay, Rosie, why don't you give us a recap of Clean Streets? That's the next item on the agenda.
Okay, so it was actually quite successful this year. I would have liked a lot more support from the board. Unfortunately, that didn't come, but, so for the nursery cleanup on November 4th, we had about 90 volunteers. We collected 152 bags of trash. We also established the gardens over on Nursery Elementary School, established relationships and partnerships between Nursery and Union High School. Do you mind not speaking when I'm talking?
Go ahead.
Is my report?
I'm gonna ask
Go
you to
ahead.
continue on with your report. It's been
Okay.
noted.
Okay. Now I've lost my thought, okay. Established relationships between North Surrey and Union High School as far as the gardens there on the campuses. Then we had the tree adoption of 87 trees over at the West LA Farmers Market on November the 5th. That was quite successful. We gave away about 145 bags, 1-gallon bags of compost, and also 145 1-gallon bags of mulch. The next cleanup that we had was November the 18th at Union High School. We had about 142 volunteers, students of Union High, parents, also UCLA service groups, and also some community members as well too. We collected about six trash bins of trash. And then we had a flash clean that was scheduled for November the 26th on Sunday. It was the block next to Best Buy along Sawtelle between Tennessee and also Pico. That was actually quite successful. We collected 8 bags of trash. We were able to complete it within 1 hour. And in addition to myself, there were 3 other community members who came out for that event. My hope is that we're going to continue with the flash cleans, maybe 1 or 2 a month. I have a core group of people now who would like to participate in these cleanups, and I think it would be good for the neighborhood council to continue on a regular basis. This is something that I wanted to continue last year, but it never came to fruition for lack of support. We also have a tree adoption that's taking place on December the 16th in conjunction with a tree planting at Stoner Park. That's being hosted by Tree People. We're going to be giving away 50 trees. Unfortunately, we're not going to have, I'm going to check and see if I can get some mulch at least from one of the local sites. Because of the fires right now, we can't get any from the valley, from the Lopez Canyon. One of the things that was really quite successful with this year's program, I started it last year as a local business volunteer promotion. We had maybe a handful of businesses that participated last year. But this year I was able to have about 50 local businesses participate. So it was anywhere from maybe 5% to 25% discount for any volunteer. And a lot of those promotions are continuing through the end of December. So hopefully with the success of that volunteer, the business promotion volunteer, the business volunteer promotions, that will continue again next year. And it looks as if most likely the Clean Streets are going to continue next year as well too, so it's going to be an annual event. I would like, hopefully, if a lot of board members are still on next year, that a lot more participation from people on the board. And actually, that's one of the things that I really noted was, I guess to probably revise bylaws to make it a requirement. I think that board members need to volunteer for events. One of the things also that I suggested was that I think that we should, I make the suggestion actually to redirect the outreach committee so that it becomes.
We've got a whole agenda item on that.
Okay, well, communications and events, we have 2 different committees so that there's more support, I think, for doing events.
All right. Anything else on Clean Streets? I gotta say, the turnout at North Sterry was good. The Uni High pictures were amazing. Our community partners were great. Rosie did a good job of getting people out there, getting like all of the refreshments out. Everything was there on time. Jay Ross was integral to that as well, so I really appreciate it. I think we should all give Rosie a round of applause because it was great. And North Sterry looked 1,000 times better even driving by when you could see the flowers in the flower pots, and it made it a much more cheerful environment. So I think that not only was it a good effort, I really like that we focused on the schools in our neighborhood this year. I think next year we should focus on Brockton Elementary, and doing flash cleanups around the elementary schools I think is a great idea. So I want to say, to commend you on that. I thought it was really good.
Also, Vice Principal of Union High School actually wants to do another one in spring 2018. So
great.
Anybody on the board who would like to help volunteer with that,
great.
would be great. I had a lot of help also because one of the things I didn't have a lot of backup on had to do with photographs and documentation, because that was actually really critical for the program. I had a lot that on my hands. I wasn't able to take photographs, maybe just a handful. Jay helped a lot with the North Sterry. Some of the Booster Club members were supposed to help, but that kind of fell through. Uni High School, I actually enlisted the help of the yearbook staff, so we had the faculty sponsor help with that. They did a video, and it has to be revised or re-edited. So that was submitted actually to Clean Streets program as part of the documentation. So, but we also had photographs from the faculty, Carrie Pike, and also one of the other yearbook staff also took photographs too. So that was good. If I didn't have their support, then we wouldn't have any documentation of these events. So
great. Well, I'm super glad that they helped out. I'm going to move some things on the agenda. Anybody else want to say anything about Clean Streets?
I just had one comment, because I had a couple folks say, hey, you know, could you try to also make sure the Civic Center, because it was right before the Thanksgiving, the food giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
So that was also, they were hoping if we were going to continue to do that, to add that to the agenda for next year.
Okay.
that it was amazing about the
Sorry, what's
business.
the question?
Is
Because
to add the Civic Center back into the
To
clean.
add the Civic Center back.
I actually have an issue with that because there are actually 3 groups that are cleaning the Civic Center. Just before.
This is not,
the-
wait,
Well,
no, I'm stopping this discussion because it was all positive and on the up and up. We can discuss the groups cleaning the Civic Center later on, but I think we're taking something that was really good and ending on a positive note and turning it sour. So we're skipping that. We're not gonna talk about the 3 other groups that are cleaning the Civic Center.
No, these are city groups.
That's
There's also
fine.
City, county, and
That's
there's also
fine,
some other.
and I'm
private
happy
groups.
for them, that's great. This was just a suggestion that came in from a stakeholder that was being relayed. We've heard the suggestion, it can be taken for what it's worth next time, but I don't wanna use this as a time to talk about everything that's wrong.
I'm not saying everything's wrong.
Well,
I
it
just
comes
question
under
the
board
fact that.
comment and announcements
Yeah.
later on.
Okay, so here's
I'm
what
just
we're gonna do.
I'm just questioning putting that on the agenda when there's already.
I heard your
There are already
question, I
groups that are
got
already
it.
cleaning it.
I heard
And that's the
you.
reason why I didn't put it on this.
Madam Chair,
Well, we
please.
we can talk about that next year when the new Clean Streets program comes. It does not need to be discussed right now. What does need to be discussed is we have some lovely people here who want to give us a presentation, and I think this is a plum committee item, so I'd like to skip to them first.
Well, is your architect here yet?
You can complain that if you.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
fine,
we can wait
great.
till the architect arrives.
Since we're already having this discussion, let's move to the bylaws committee report then, next, which is item number 9 on the agenda. And Rosie can give us the motions and overview discussion. These are the last 2 pages in y'all's packets. I did say y'all. It's actually the right place to use it.
Is there another packet?
I'm sharing with Eric. Here's one. I'll make paper airplane real quick.
Okay, so this is bylaws committee resolution.
In the back one.
Last 2 pages.
Yeah.
The bylaws committee recommends that the board approve the following. 1, board of directors. A, structure of the deliberations/consideration shall be approved. 1, presentation by applicant, 10-minute maximum. 2, questions for committee. 3, public comment. 4, consideration/debate by committee. 5, motions. The stakeholder status shall be reaffirmed every year, approved. 2, committees. Board member alternates shall be elected to committees, approved. B, committee member candidates shall be considered and voted on individually, approved. 3, boards/committees shall consider motions on the agenda first, approved. 4, an item for ex parte communications and disclosures shall be included in all agenda, approved. 5, stakeholder qualifications by substantial interest in the community shall be eliminated, approved. 6, outreach chair/committee shall be reorganized with an outreach communications chair committee and events chair committee, approved.
Okay, there's been a motion. Is it?
There's also this, there are 2 different ones.
Let's do them one at a time.
Separately, okay.
So the motion that was just read by Rosie has been moved, I presume. You're moving it, Rosie?
Yeah, I guess
All right, so it's been moved. Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
I think we should take a minute to read it.
That's fine. Each of these items are gonna get 7 minutes, so depending on what the queue looks like, I might have to limit discussion.
Can I ask a question of Jasmine?
Yes.
Item number 5, stakeholder qualification by substantial interest in the community shall be eliminated. Is that not the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners and the ordinance description of a stakeholder?
I'm sorry, I don't have the agenda. I don't have the packet in front of me. Can
Oh,
you-
it's in the binder? Can you?
It's to change the stakeholder qualification by eliminating the words substantial interest in the community. Is that not city ordinance and bunk policy? That the description of a stakeholder is live, work, own property or have a substantial interest in the community?
It's substantial and ongoing interest or
Right.
community interest.
So I
So if
think,
you don't like the word substantial and ongoing,
or it just says eliminate substantial interest, which to me sounds like we're eliminating anyone who would be a stakeholder with just substantial interest, which means our bylaws would be violating city policy. and-
right, it
and
has to have
bond-
community interest in there because the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners defines what a stakeholder is. And that's part of the stakeholder definition. Person who lives, works, owns property, or has a substantial and ongoing interest in the community, or a community interest. So that part has to be in there.
So,
But whatever changes you guys want to make as a board, so when you were in EE, you just agreed and I went in and changed them, but that's not how it is. You have to submit a bylaw amendment application, and then it'll be reviewed. And if you're doing any kind of board structure change, like adding a youth seat, for example, whatever, that would have to go before the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners. But any type of change that's going to go against like a neighborhood commissioner policy or a department or city policy would just get rejected. So
So I'd like to amend the motion by striking 5 and approving 1 through 4 plus 6.
Wait, you want to amend just by striking 5?
Striking 5.
Okay. So there's been a motion to amend. Is there a second on the amendment? It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on the amendment? Okay, no discussion. All those in favor of striking item number 5?
So substantial interest, I think it had to be, the point was clarification that, for instance, if you belong to a church or some kind of organization, I believe that would qualify as a substantial interest, but other than that, I think that was a discussion, right?
well, there are all types of, there's like a list in the elections manual of like when you're verifying a voter.
How you do it?
Yeah, what they can use to qualify as a community interest, whether it's a church or a school or
club.
they do volunteer work or a club, or there's like a whole list and I can send you that. But you can also just add in how you want your board members to produce documentation saying like, oh, I belong to this organization, if you want it to be a letter or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Well, and so, again,
Yeah.
the discussion that we're having at the moment has been moved and seconded to strike item number 5 from this motion. Is there any additional discussion? On just the amendment? Any other discussion? All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hands. All those opposed? Okay. Rosie.
Abstain.
Oh, who abstained? Sorry, I didn't see you, Jean. And Jean abstained. Sorry, you're hidden over there from me. Okay, so item number 5 is stricken. Now, we're back to the motion as Rosie read it without item number 5. Is there further discussion on that?
Are we going through each one
It's a whole motion.
for everything?
Yes.
But we can discuss any
Okay.
particular point.
So who wants to get on the queue? Please raise your hand. Eric? Anybody else?
So how does a board member alternate work? Is that like a extra person in case someone decides to resign or
Yeah.
something like that? Is that what that's for?
So there are different ways of doing the alternate process. So one way would be there's a pool of alternates and they're all trained in the same way that you guys are. So they would have to go through the ethics and funding and code of conduct, blah, blah, blah. And then we're like 1 through 5, we sit in a row, and when there's not quorum, or we know like Jean's not gonna be here, Jay's not gonna be here, okay, alternate number 1 is gonna take that seat, or 2 or 3, whatever, you go down the line. Or another way would be it's like a buddy system, right? So you would find me to be your alternate because I have the same qualification as you. So you're in a business seat and so am I. I'm a business stakeholder, so,
Clarify, this is for committees, not the board.
oh,
These are board member alternates for committees.
okay, sorry.
So we're not taking stakeholders, it's going to be board members as alternates to serve on the committee in case the board member is not available to attend the meeting.
Got it.
All right,
I'm glad
Eric?
you went through that because I didn't understand it to mean that. I thought we were
Yeah.
coming up with an alternate system, so I was gonna
It's under
ask.
committees,
Yeah,
committee section.
I withdraw my, I think it's a good idea.
So you want to get on the
I'll
queue?
get me on the queue.
All right, you're on the queue. Go ahead, Jay.
Oh, okay.
You're the queue.
Good. So, you know, I can see it like in D-Link where they have it for the board, where it's important for the board. I think having it for committees is a mistake because committees do individual projects, you know, that they have to be involved in, they have to have knowledge of. They're gonna come in late in the game, they're not gonna have the right information, and they're gonna be voting on things that, quite frankly, they're gonna be coming in blind on it. It makes absolutely no sense. Either you're on the committee, you're in the game, or you can't make the meetings and get off the committee and let someone else fill your seat. It's gonna do their job. I think it's a horrible idea.
I'd like to be on the queue too.
Q,
Wait, okay, hold on a second. All right, so I got Jay Ross. I heard Ron and Disa at the same time, so I'm gonna do Disa, and then Ron, and then Danielo. And since Eric and Jacob, they're short, we're going for a minute a person because we're running short on time. So Jay Ross.
Okay, it's completely false that board members can't jump into Plum. Everyone receives the information at the exact same time per the Brown Act, and everyone starts at the exact same time learning about it. All of you are extremely intelligent, so that's why you are here. And if a board member's not there, you have to have a full staff to make full decisions. It's a very simple and reasonable thing. I mean, it's foolish to think that board members can't jump in and learn about a Plum project. You have my home phone number, call me anytime, and I'll tell you everything you need to know.
Okay, great, thank you. Disa.
I would like to second what Jay said. I think
Which Jay? Handel.
What Jay Handel said. I think the reason for having the committees, I was hoping, is so that we can have people who are designated to do deep dives on these issues. And I would think that that might include becoming educated on some of the concerns beyond the board. And so that I agree that, you know, to have someone just jump in at the last minute to make decisions just seems to kind of undermine the point of it all for me. So I think, I'm not saying that, you know, someone can't fill in if they feel qualified to. I just don't think it should be a requirement.
Thank you. Ron.
yeah, I think I'm leaning toward Jay Ross's perspective on this. As an example, let's say there's a really important committee vote coming up and there's a death in the family and Jay has to go to a funeral and can't be there. If there's an alternate who's been going, who is up to speed on what's going on, essentially they would be acting as Jay's proxy in the vote. And I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing.
All right, thanks, Ron. Daniela.
Yeah, I agree with Jay Handel that if you have a committee, that the people should be invested in the whole process to make a final decision and to, on a short notice, to have someone step in to vote on something that may have been going on for a while would probably not be a good thing. That's my opinion.
Okay, so
Sorry,
Naomi.
sorry.
I'm gonna add myself to the queue briefly. This is not about committee alternates, but rather about the item number 1, A and B actually. I think that should go in standing rules and not as a bylaws change, so I would be against this motion for that reason. Okay, Eric, I've got you. You've got 30 seconds because you talked before. Go ahead.
I think, well, I don't know if the intention was for an alternate to actually attend the meetings and not participate, and they're supposed to go to every meeting just to be an alternate. If they do that, then I think it can work. But if they're just going to show up when one person's not going to be there, then I'd side with what Jay Handel said, and it wouldn't work.
Okay, Naomi.
Well, you know, I'm kind of split because I do know from before, there was always kind of, as part of the bylaws, that if there was somebody missing, that the chair could always jump in. And that was always kind of the default, that the chair could jump in for a committee or to either run the committee or to be an alternate. So I don't think having an alternate is, it's not a new thing, but I understand why it might be a good thing. I'm just feel a little unclear. This might be a standing rules also about how to deal with alternates as opposed to being something in the bylaws. I'd rather see this in the standing rules.
Okay, is there anybody else who'd like to be on the queue? Jay Handel, you get 30 seconds.
I'll take 10.
All right.
Now, last comment's real simple. Committee has no adjudicated power anyway. It all has to come back to the board. So whether you're missing a person or don't have a person, whatever your vote is, whether it's 4-3, 3-3, it doesn't matter. It has to come to the board, and the board is the only adjudicated body in the neighborhood council to make any real decisions that can be forwarded to anybody. So I think it's a moot point having an alternate.
26 seconds, actually.
Well, I can fit under 30.
Is anybody else have any comments, or would they like to be on the queue? Okay, so let's go ahead and vote on this. What we have left is what Rosie read, minus section 5, which was cut out. So all of those in favor of adopting these bylaws amendments, please raise your hands.
Is that with the alternate?
It's with everything. It's the entire thing, except for 5.
Then I'd amend it to take out the alternate too.
Well, we'd have to amend to take out what you need.
Yeah, let's do it in reverse and, propose things to take out and see if each one passes that way.
We're gonna vote on this one time right now. What's up for vote and what we've been discussing is the entire motion. So we are gonna vote on accepting the motion as read by Rosie, with the exclusion of item number 5, which was already taken out. So all those in favor of this motion without item 5, please raise your hands. So we have 4 in favor. All those opposed? And we have 7 opposed, so the motion fails. All right, the second motion from the Bylaws Committee, Rosie, if you'd like to.
The bylaws committee voted to recommend the following revisions to the bylaws 2017 version. Selection in 2017 versus election in 2019. Election in 2019, the committee approved it 3-0-0. Justification, section process may result in a small electorate that is not representative of larger population in district. If there is a selection in 2018, all seats would be selected and seats would have to run again in 2019 election. The neighborhood council would have to fund 2018 selection and the city will fund 2019 election. Article 4, stakeholders, revised to, quote, all board members and committee members must provide proof of stakeholder status. This was approved by the committee 3-0-0. Justification, as representatives of the neighborhood council, non-board member stakeholders should be held to same standards and will benefit from the same educational benefits as board members. Revised to add, when ownership, employment, or association is ended with a business or organization, or the business or organization closes, the stakeholder seat shall be automatically vacated. Justification, a stakeholder is elected based on membership of a specific business or organization. Article 5-501, composition. Revised to, this was approved 2-1-0, 6 at-large residents. So instead of 4 at-large, there would be 6 at-large residents. Article 5-504, terms. Revised to 504-2 to add, and all subsequent terms will be 4 years, approved by the committee 3-0-0. Justification is structure that allows staggered terms, with half the board elected every 2 years requires 4-year terms for all seats.
I'd like to,
There's more on the next page.
2019 election will have 4-year terms for top 8 vote getters and 2-year terms for lower 7 vote getters. In 2021 election, the 2-year terms will convert to 4-year terms. Justification, staggered terms prevent turnover of entire board in a single election. Article 7, committees. Add, stakeholder committee members shall comply with done training/certification requirements to include ethics, finance, harassment, etc., approved by the committee 3-0-0. Add, composition. Size of committee shall be maximum of 7 members with 4 board members and a maximum of 3 stakeholders, approved. by the Committee 201. Attachment 5, revised 2, all district representatives, resident who is, all business representatives, business owner or authorized staff who is, organizational representative, organizational officer or authorized member who is, at-large resident, representatives, resident who is. Ex parte communications not disclosed by the committee members, disclosures and conflicts of interest not disclosed by the committee members.
Okay, so that is the motion. Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'd also like to point out, for clarity, I think, although I may not be remembering this correctly, I thought that the first part, the selection versus election, we approved already. And so that shouldn't be in there.
Correct.
Is that a friendly amendment? And the same thing with the Article 5 terms. I thought we already talked about that and approved it, that they would be staggered, 4 years and staggered.
Correct.
Is that your memory also, Jay?
That's correct.
I thought we had approved that.
That may be true.
Well, I think there was a reminder in the monthly profile or something like that, that I think that these things have to be checked on.
Yeah,
That's why.
You guys, we verbally discussed it.
But it didn't get a letter.
It didn't go, I did not go into your bylaws and change that.
Got it.
And now you're out of EE,
Right,
so I
okay.
can't do that anymore.
Okay.
So it's good that it's back on there.
Okay, that's
Because
fine.
whatever you want me to change, even if you discussed it, please put it on your amendment application.
Got it.
So that once I'm back in there and I'm doing it all at once.
Okay. Okay, so let's leave that in there then, given that. Yes, Jay?
I would like to pull Article 5-501 for discussion and Article 7 for discussion and move the rest.
Okay, Article 5 and Article 7. So your motion would be to pull those to discuss, but but to approve the rest?
Correct.
Okay, so let's take them in turn then. How about Article 5/501? Do you want to kick off the discussion on that?
501? Yes. Again, I think we're about ready to violate city ordinance and bond policy, because if all at-large are residents only, and then we have 4 district seats, that means 10 out of 15 seats would be residents only. That by itself creates the problem of no one class shall hold majority on intent. It may end up being that way if it's live, work, or own property. But if you designate it live only, you're now 2/3 of the board is automatically controlled and you become a homeowner association. And I would say that will violate city and bond policy and should be removed forthwith.
And your thoughts on Article 7?
So Article 7, I think, is nothing more than a veiled attempt to circumvent what we did with the Plum Committee, which was to do what the name of our department was, which is empower stakeholders. We were able to bring on additional stakeholders so that we didn't have a majority of board members on the committee. We had board members and stakeholders, and I think it's egregious that we would sit here in front of our stakeholders and say we don't want that many on our committees, because we want to control the committees. We want to be the majority vote on the committee to take to the board to be the majority vote. I think it's disingenuous. I think it is completely appalling that we would do this in front of stakeholders, and I would ask that that be removed also from the queue. Thank you.
I would add that if we remove Article 5, Section 501, then I think Attachment 5 should also be revised or removed. So I would add that. Okay, that's been the discussion on those removals.
Can I just
Yeah.
make a quick comment? If you were gonna change residential to make it more if you change anything with the board structure, you would have to go before the commission and be able to articulate why you think that board structure change is needed. And then I also articulate an argument you know, what I think about it. And just in general, the trend is, yeah, if you're creating any kind of like caucus one way or another. So I've seen boards that are all at large and it's just whoever, or more of a balance. So we'll have 4 business, 4 residential, 4, you know, whatever.
Is that true that it has to be 1/3 and 1/3 and 1/3 and no group can have a majority? Is
That's
that
not
true?
what he said.
It has to be inclusive, so it can't create or appear to create, like we're favoring residents. Even if that's like, oh, we're gonna have, let's say you broke it down, like we're gonna have 2 renters, 2 from this homeowner area, 2 from that, and it all added up to 10, and then there were just 1 for business, 1 for community interest, so on and so forth. That's still creating a majority of one type of stakeholder.
So is it a numerical amount, is it a percentage amount, or how is it determined?
It's grayer than that, because you're going before the commission and making an argument, basically. So, it's not a number, but it does have to be balanced. If that
Comment?
makes sense.
Hold on, okay. So I have Ron on the queue, Jay Handel on the queue. Anybody else on the queue? Naomi?
Jay Ross?
For what Jay Handel is talking about,
Yeah,
that's what we're talking about right now.
yeah.
You want to get on the queue or no?
If it's about this one.
Yeah, it's both. So we're talking about 501 and Article 7. So now we've got a sizable queue. I'm going to start limiting folks to a minute. So the next person on the queue is Ron. Go ahead, Ron.
Okay, Article 7, committees. I think the only issue is with the second part. I don't think anyone has a problem with requiring non-board member stakeholders to go through the Dunn training in terms of the Brown Act and the like. Is that correct? So can we retain that part of Article 7?
That's good,
Okay.
So we're really talking about the composition
the
issue.
composition.
Okay, great. Thanks for focusing that, Ron. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, Jay Handel.
So again, I just want to reiterate to answer Jay's question more succinctly than Jasmine did. The policy is really clear. It doesn't say 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 or numerical. It says no one class may hold a majority of the seats on the council. So if you have 4 districts, which we have, and then you have 6 residential, you now have 10 out of 15 seats that are designated for one class. That is a majority, and that violates policy. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Is that true, Jasmine?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Naomi, you're next on the queue.
You know, I actually went to one of the bylaws meetings and I just wanted to bring it up about composition of board members because I think as things change so quickly in our community, we have to look at how we define. Like, for example, one of the reasons we had such difficulty in finding business representatives is that businesses have changed a lot in this area. It's not a mom and pop place as much as it used to be. We try to retain that. So I have always felt for a long time that we had this artificial designation between big and small businesses. And I don't think that should be there. I think we should try to make it more inclusive because I think you have a big change. It's almost like the loss of a middle class too. You know, we have really big businesses that don't really care, to be very honest. We have small businesses that do care. So I'd like to see the big business one stricken. I would like to see business regardless of size, but those who care about the community. I just want to say that.
Thank you.
You can also do like a middle of the road solution where you dissolve it's just 4 residential seats and it's 4 business or whatever the number is, but not area specific so that you have less of all these big businesses that might be on Sletzel or like whatever the main street.
But we couldn't have it right now because it's not part of this motion. So I'm going to keep moving us along.
But I'm sorry.
I appreciate that. I think that's good for the bylaws. Jay Ross?
Yeah, it's the number 7. It's not a veiled attempt. I'm upfront about it. I believe that the board members should have, prominence. When you have 7 members, that's big enough. 8 members, 9 members gets unwieldy. And, there are plenty of opportunities for business and stakeholders and organizations. They can testify, they can lobby, they can submit comments. You know, it's not appalling, that's ridiculous. There are plenty of opportunities for everyone to become involved, and, you know, committees, they do committee work. It needs to be succinct. You know, they may have extra expertise, but I definitely believe that the board members should have a majority on the committee. I think that's very fair.
Question?
Yes, Ron?
Have we had problems getting quorums on committees?
I don't think so. Okay. Are you done, Jen?
Yes.
Ross? Okay. Eric, you're next.
I'm not appalled, but I thought it was really cool that we had 4 stakeholders join 4 board members on Plum. I just thought that was great to have the participation of people that were equally interested and not on the board and wanting to participate. So I thought it was great to have more, but I'm not appalled by anything like that. But I do agree. I think we should have more people on it. I'd rather have more than less. I don't think majorities. It shouldn't just be a majority, I think.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. I put myself on the queue because both of the items we're discussing, I was at the bylaws meeting about. Let me time myself too. So 501, I in fact do not think that we should limit it to residents. I think there are plenty of people that have a connection to the neighborhood, that want to retain a connection to the neighborhood, that might not live here anymore or work here for whatever reason, but they still go to the gym here, or they still do whatever here, or they eat here all the time. And so I think that we want to be over-inclusive rather than under-inclusive. We had a hard enough time filling the board seats, and I think to make it more restrictive, especially to restrict it further to people who reside here when it's getting harder and harder expense-wise to continue to reside here, I think is a problem, which is why I voted against it there and why I'll vote against it here. The other issue I have with the composition of the committees, I think a committee should have an odd number of people just so there's no ties. But other than that, if people want to be on the committee, and Plum is a big thing, and people want to be on it, let them on it. So that's why I abstained in that vote, and now my time's up. All right, anybody else want to be on the queue? All right, Rose.
Had to do with okay, so when you were talking about anybody who has a stake should be able to get on a committee, I'm sorry, has to do with stakeholders, I believe. I thought there was an issue about it could be somebody who just goes and buys coffee all the time at Starbucks or eats at...
Yeah.
No, I thought that was,
No,
that was an issue.
I think it was just.
That was an issue, wasn't it?
I'm trying to explain.
Okay.
So I think I had the same reaction when you said, oh, someone who eats here all the time or goes to the gym. That's not a technical qualification.
It would have to
But
qualify.
it was a manner of speaking of what you meant. Somebody that has a connection to the community, so they volunteer at Norris Dairy or, you know, whatever.
Well, let me be
it
more
is.
specific. Somebody whose mother lives in the community, who can no longer afford to live here, and lives, let's say, you know, just south of the 10 because it's a little more affordable, but they're not technically in our district. But they might come here every day, 2 or 3 times a day, to take their mother out for walks, to go get her coffee. They might stay the night occasionally when the mother has a sprained ankle or whatever, but they don't live here anymore.
What was the objection to that? It had to do with your use of saying somebody who like...
Well, just because I say it in a meeting doesn't mean that's the bylaws. I'm just saying
No,
that
but that was the example that you used, so I'm actually close to that. I mean, that became an issue, I believe.
That's fine. If you want to take up your minute talking about my example that doesn't mean anything, you can do that. You've got 32 seconds left. All right, anybody else want to get on the queue? Okay, it's there's been a motion to strike 501, Article 5, 501 composition in its entirety, and to also strike the first part of Article 7, which is the add stakeholder committee members shall comply with second part. Composition, size of committee shall be a maximum of 7 members with 4 board members and a maximum of 3 stakeholders.
And to amend attachment 5 at large.
And to take out attachment 5. Do we just gonna take out attachment 5?
No, just the at-large.
At-large thing. Okay.
Assuming it passes.
So the motion is to strike those things and approve the rest of this as bylaws changes. Is there a second to that motion? It's been moved and seconded. And we're going to go ahead and vote. So all those in favor of voting for these bylaws changes with striking Article 5-501 the second part of Article 7 and striking the bottom section of attachment number 5 as it relates to at-large residents. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, all those opposed? All right, all those abstaining?
One abstain.
Disa. Okay, so the motion passes. And now I think your architect's here, right? I know that was an exciting discussion. We're gonna move on. Which one are they here for, Jay?
They're here for the Idaho project.
Great.
I'll give a
So we'll take,
brief synopsis of it, and then we'll present them.
Where is this on the agenda?
this is item number 8B. We're gonna take it out of order since they're here to present.
Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Zahiri are here. They are the property owners, and Hamid Omrani is their architect. They proposed to build a 4-story apartment building. Right now, on the site is it's a 1-story house that would be demolished. To the south side is a very small 1-story house. And below that is a 3-story house or duplex. To the west side across the street is a row of 1-story houses. To the east side, right next to it, is a 2-story apartment, and then a little farther over, there's a large 4-story apartment. They're proposed. They asked for. I guess the immediate issues are, one, they asked for the side street, which is Amherst. Right now, it's kind of small, almost like an alley. It's about 30 feet wide, and in general, the city wants you to widen the streets to 60 feet for local streets. They're asking that they don't have to do that. They're asking for a waiver of street widening, and the Plum Committee voted to support that because, you know, the other houses on the street are also 30 feet wide, and there's not a lot of traffic, and it seems, you know, it seems like a reasonable request that, you know, to keep a small street quieter. There aren't any traffic backup problems. They do have a discretionary approval request, which is for a variance to reduce the rear setback in the I think it's an R3 zone, to reduce it from 15 feet to 8 feet, which is pretty substantial. They're asking for it to be 50% smaller, and there are 2 reasons for that. One is, and correct me if you can explain how the building line works, but I think you have to have a bigger front setback, 20 feet instead of 15 feet. That's moving back. Okay, so they'll explain that. So in the front, I believe they have a 20-foot setback when they're only usually required to do 15. So they're kind of pushing the building in the back and reducing it from 15 to 8. That's their request. One of the reasons is because they want a large parking garage there because they're building so many units, and that's part of the justification, which when you do variances, you have to make certain findings, and one of them is that site is unique. And, you know, in this case, it's a square site, it's flat, and usually variances are more related to you have a site that's sloped they can't build on, or there's a wetlands they can't build on. One idea is, you know, for this building line, it's 20 feet instead of 15. One idea is just have the site, and what Plum was getting at was to have the site just observe the underlying zoning for the R3, and you've heard me say that before on different projects. So for example, we could have them move the project closer from 20 feet to 15 feet, so it has the same required 15-foot setback instead of a larger 21, and then that would move the building back from in the rear from 8 to 15 feet. So it wouldn't be, you know, a 4-story building 8 feet away from the 1-story house next to it. So that's kind of the basics. So, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but, you know, do you guys want to present now and go through it?
On that issue, because you asked me.
Well, yeah, if you want to stand up and come, the floor is yours.
First of all, you asked me for plans. We have 2 sets of plans.
Yeah, and I made a couple of larger ones too.
Yeah, I brought them.
Here's some
That's
of
the
the 17 you
Can I
guys
ask
can
a question
share.
before we start with this? Jay, what was the Plum Committee's finding?
We voted to support the waiver so they don't have to widen the street. Then we opposed the variance because we want all projects to respect the underlying zoning, but they can explain it here.
You had a question last time about the front building line on
Yes.
25 that we have. I brought the information for you. This is the ZMOS that my planning they sent for me. Can I explain that my
Yeah,
property
yes,
has
you
2
can.
limitations? In front, we need to go 25 back for no reason. Actually, we talked to transportation, they don't want it. They say the Idaho is wide enough, and the BOE, West LA doesn't want it. Just because it have been in old map, they say you should go 25 back, which is an antiquated, old map, just according to that. Because of that, we asked the city, if you want, we go 25 back on the front, at least give us some relief on the back of the house. So right now from 80, which is our length, they want 40 off. So half of the length goes. That's one of the issues we are in. So we are very working hard to make that front line, which is not necessary anymore. Nobody in the city wants it, to correct it to normal 15. That's one of the issues we are following up. If we get that, Ross, we don't need the rear setback. We're going to keep the 15.
Okay.
And we are working hard because we love to have the 15. I want to show
So
that.
just to clarify, your proposal is to get rid of the building line so you can just do
Exactly.
15-foot
Just,
setback, okay?
Yeah, I
right.
wanted to show.
Yeah, that makes
This way they
sense.
want like 1,750 out of our lot, not just a setback, just they call it building line or highway dedication. And also, as Ross said, my side street, which is a local, they already let my other neighbor, to go back. Not that they asked me. So already they set the line for us there. I said, when you put for 2 houses, set the line, you can ask the third one.
Right.
Just go back. Ross had been familiar with it. Just he had question about the rear setback, so I worked on that.
Yeah.
We are working hard to move the front line.
Yes.
And on the design, Mr. Omrani never does small project like mine. He does famous big project, and out of generosity, accepted to do my project. And he came last week. This is his third time coming to, answer your question.
So can I ask a question?
Of course.
So are you saying that you now want to comply with the standard setback on the rear and not ask for a variance?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. If they let me not to have 25, because 25 is ridiculous, not necessary. Before they thought the expo line might go through Idaho.
Is that
and
why they asked for
Colorado.
25?
I think on the old time they thought it might go, so probably they just for a certain part between Bondi and between Amherst. And also, Ross, we are allowed to build 8 units, but we're just going to build 4 units because that's a family building. So we are going so much down that we are allowed. We don't want a big project like that.
Jay, do you know why they were asking for 25 on the front?
Because the city required it.
It was in old
I mean,
maps.
do you know why the
just-
city required it?
And she said it was related to building the expo line through Idaho.
I think
Maybe
I
more
assumed
best
so.
But I think all the residential homes, because that's a single family home, they all have 25 feet.
What are the
from
rest of the,
sidewalk to
what are the rest of the buildings
front.
on the block setback lines?
Well, so my question actually is for Jay too. So I guess maybe I'm a little confused. Are they asking for a height variance or like?
No highway.
So they're allowed to go this high. They're having less units than they would normally be allowed to have. Is that true?
Not exactly, because it depends on how big you make the units. They could probably fit 8 very small units or 4 very big units.
Okay.
You can't say I want 4 very big units and not, because there's enough density to build an 8-story building here.
Okay.
And this is what I brought up to you guys about the Whole Foods project. They said we're building less than required. They could build 300, 400 square foot units, or what they did, bigger units. But, that's one thing developers always say to try to trick neighborhood councils, and my company is guilty of that too. There are many different development standards, and you can't just say I'm building fewer than the units, because there's height, FAR, open space, as you guys all know. So they are, building less units, but the units they're building are bigger, so.
So what's the front setback on the rest of the block?
What we put on Idaho or Amherst?
Front.
Idaho.
You have an aerial photo right here, so.
This is the one of them.
Oh, this is for Amherst.
Okay, can I make a comment?
Yes.
Just because I know this neighborhood,
Yeah.
my mom lives there, I grew up in this area,
Yeah.
so I know.
Looks like it's about
So
15 feet.
Idaho is, you know, it's pretty packed. It has a lot of multi-units all along there. It's kind of a really funky block, and I think that 25 feet is it's just kind of weird because it's uneven. I think the problem is not on Idaho. The problem is on Amherst. And the reason is because for whatever reason, they had expanded that block so that's a 30-foot street. And that street is so dangerous, not right now, not on Idaho and there, but the minute you go down to that third house that got a variance, I don't know why and how they got this variance. It's supposed to be a smaller one, but that particular one abuts that alley. So then people who use that alley and people who are coming either north or south on Amherst, it is accidents we have. It's so dangerous there. You know, you have a lot of people who walk right there and you can never walk on that side. I'm not saying it's not your project, it's not your fault because it's those two, you know, that, or it's that one big one that's right next to the alley. It's so dangerous and it really needs a stop sign or something because people zoom out of that alley and people don't know. They're coming down this smaller, narrow street. There are lots of near accidents. I know that. I'm there like every day. And then the one thing, I really appreciate the fact that, you know, you're kind of looking at more of a family-ish unit or something a little smaller because of the 3 units that are right adjacent to each other. You'll have yours, you know, that's a little bit bigger. You'll have one very, very small little house. And then you have that one really kind of a monstrosity, to be really honest. I really don't know how that got there. It should never have been approved. And they can't even finish it. It's been years, and it's like, they keep putting it in, and I don't know what's wrong with that one. But, you know, yeah, but no, I'm a little, I have no problem with Idaho, you know, and I don't think that they're asking anything wrong. I don't know if there's anything that we can do about that 30-foot or about the alley. I know that's not really your project, but I just need to bring that up because it's really
I can answer a few of those. Someone asked what are the other front setbacks along Idaho. Here's the aerial. You can see they're 15 feet on the apartment next. It's also, I think this resolution is in your packet that I emailed to all of you and there are copies. The aerial photo, you can look at it. But you can see the apartment next door and the apartment next door that along Idaho, those front setbacks, those are 15 feet. Yeah, I know the house to the south, and the reason I think it's front setback, actually if you measure it, it's about 10 feet instead of 15 feet, but it's an extra small site, so that may be why. Often the planning department says, well, if we take 15, if we make you comply with 15 feet, you know, the developer can build less, so they side with the developers. So Naomi, that's, unfortunately, probably that is what happened in that case on that project.
May I answer to that? May I?
Yes.
They are a small lot. She's very right. I told the city you should have bought those 3 plots, you know, just demo them and widen the street. But what they decided, they let that apartment to go because that's a small lot. City cannot do anything. The second lot is the same. They are not. So on the third one, if they already made the decision not to widen the street.
Yeah, you're I know, there's nothing that can be done because they're all using that space up to there. So to be fair, I understand, you deserve to use that space, it shouldn't be not there. I'm just saying that one by the alley is so dangerous. And I think for your residents, for your family, I think if there's something else that can be done with the Department of Transportation, it should be done.
I mean, to me, it seems like there might not be enough parking. I mean, I know there's enough parking, like.
For required, we can't have enough parking.
Well, yeah, it just seems like you're building big units in a place where likely it's gonna be roommate situation. So a 2-bedroom apartment is gonna have way more than 2 cars. And the parking is already pretty impacted over there.
With the proposed, we have enough. We have for bicycle, for the cars, for everything. But with the required by the city, we can't have.
Wait, where is the parking along Idaho?
The parking,
Or will it come in from?
No, our parking.
Yeah, where will they
Where
enter?
will it
On the
be?
side street from Amherst, on the south
It'll be-
portion of the lot.
So right next to that second, to that
Yeah, the
small
second they're
house.
gonna build two, like the one that you saw, they're gonna build the second one, the small one that you said in the middle.
Oh, are they planning to
Yes,
develop
they
that?
are planning, yes.
So I think,
And they are allowed, they have, nobody can tell them.
I think that if you park in the entrance, gonna be from Amherst, and that narrow street right there, that last piece of street, is so narrow that I can see why the city wants the street to be widened, because the traffic there is gonna be increased. A lot of cars are gonna be coming in and out of your building, the building that's next door that hasn't been finished, and new houses that are built in that street. That little exit there is just not, it's not a legal street really, if you start adding more density to that corner.
The
So-
street gonna stay the same, they are not gonna, I don't know if I can. But about the opening from the Amherst, me,
Yes,
I
that's
am
right.
not sure. I let it, I take your advice, and if Mr. Omrani can do it from Idaho, it doesn't make any difference for us where the opening.
It was two options from Amherst and Idaho, and we exercised both. I talked with the traffic in Metro and in West LA. So the only problem if you go to Idaho, because it is exactly after the turn from Amherst, it is more dangerous.
Right.
That's the problem, or not we prefer to go there. But if before the Amherst, so when they are going to the north, so they can look at that, but or not when they turn very fast is more dangerous. So that's the reason we go to Amherst.
So what is the Plum Committee's opposition to their setback?
The opposition is that the rear setback is too short, but the reason, and this is more getting into discussion, because we want the underlying zone to be respected. And if they got rid of that building line requirement in the front, which they're proposing now, that would allow them to move the whole thing up, 8 feet and eliminate the need, they have a 15-foot setback in the front and in the back, which to me sounds reasonable.
Yes, that's what we like to.
Does that make sense?
Is that what you guys are saying, that you want
That's
to do?
it was my proposal to the owner today, because it's related. So sometimes in a committee, they go approve with condition. It means that if the city will not accept 15 feet front yard setback and they have difficulty, it's possible to go by 8. But if will be approval condition, if the city accept 15, so they have to come back to the regular rear yard setbacks. So it's fair to
Yeah,
both
we are
sides.
working hard to go with regular setback, we
Yeah.
like it. Already I want to show, we bought a pond, and we planted tree in the backyard, so we love to keep that 15. This is black and white, I'm so sorry. We already planted a pond, because we love trees, we planted so many trees, put light, so we love to keep that backyard as much we can.
So,
And this,
just so I'm clear, maybe I'm a little confused. So I think what I hear them saying is that they agree with what the Plum Committee is saying.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Everybody agrees?
Yes.
You guys agree with this?
If they accept 15 in front,
Yeah,
I
the
will
city has to accept it.
Right, I
Yeah.
understand. But our recommendation would be
They will
this.
accept the rear yard, but
But-
if the city will not approve 15 and they have to push them back in 25, so they need 8. Because by the way, 8 is very bad for them for their privacy too. It's better to go 15, it was my suggestion. But if there is a bad situation that will not accept, so
But you guys like this thing from the Plum Committee as well?
I move it.
All right, it's been moved.
actually, it's less
Oh, we have to revise it slightly.
Yeah, I'd like to.
We have public comments?
Well, hold on a second, wait a
Go
minute.
ahead, go ahead.
We've got a motion that hasn't been seconded yet.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded now. Naomi has a question. Go ahead.
I'm still really, it's the safety, and I think it's also about where the parking will be. I totally get your point that if you don't have it right there now, on Idaho, you have to kind of go up. That still seems too dangerous with the additional traffic, and I've been seeing more and more traffic in the last couple of years. I don't know if this is within your purview. I think that this particular street with the 30 feet, which does not really accommodate the 2 cars, this really should be a one-way, this portion should be a one-way street, maybe going north, so that you force people to either go north or they have to go over to Centinela or Wellesley and then go down Idaho to park there. You know, I'm telling you, that 30-foot, but that's a one-way street. That is not a
Is the
street.
entrance and egress gonna be on Amherst or Idaho?
Amherst. And
Another problem that we have is because the proportion of the lot is different, additionally in the design, if entry will be from Idaho, we will have more difficulty on the design and the number of the parking. So it's better that we go through that they have more parking, that's the restricted area. So it's better that they have more parking, it's good for the around too, whatever that.
Well, I understand it's better
residents
parking, but I'm just saying that from Amherst side, it just still seems dangerous to me. And it seems like with the multiple roommate situation, you know.
all right, and we actually have Brian first for public comment, and then I will get to you, sir.
Okay, so this is an example of when the committees in the past have voted for a reduced setback. It's then set a precedent for everybody else that follows. This is a particularly nice couple here trying to work with the plum and work with the city. But I want you all to sort of realize that there are a lot of neighborhood councils that have already passed motions to keep the building line, even with small subdivisions. And I think that has a lot of clarity, because then when somebody comes in, they know the situation, that they can follow the building line. This kind of gray area is taken away. This particular project I'm not against. I think that they're obviously the type of people we'd like in our neighborhood. They want to work, you know, with everybody.
And they want to live there.
Right, and you're a family and everything. But I just want the community to understand that when we vote, when in the past people voted to allow those buildings to go forward, it created a problem and a grey area for everybody else that follows, and the dangers that you talk about, which with our other project with A, which I would like to, which I've also put on my speaker card, I'll bring that up at that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am.
I have two questions. One is, what is the current setback on Idaho?
On Idaho?
Yeah.
Just between these two streets, Amherst and Bondi, is 25. It have been an old map.
I mean, but the existing property line, the existing setbacks
25 is
for all
25.
of those buildings along Idaho.
Just
and
those,
Amherst
you
and
just say they were
also
set back
the- That whole section
This
is
map
25
is
feet.
worrying me.
And so you're proposing to have it be the same setback as what it is now?
No, the
The existing is
Oh,
a
something
single
15,
family,
okay.
so
And my
we
second-
have larger setback.
And
But the next door at Idaho, that's new construction, no, the setback is 15.
So it's only
And-
these guys, for some reason, that they got kind of, I think, messed up by the transportation, because they said it's 25, but everybody else right next door
It's
along
15.
Idaho, it's all 15.
Okay.
And he did.
And then
Transportation doesn't, I'm so sorry, transportation doesn't want it, West LA engineering doesn't want it. Just because that's an old Siemens, they say you should keep it.
Again, I don't think
and
it's a problem with
That's right, I want to get her second question.
My second question is, I didn't quite understand about parking. Are you proposing to build a garage there? Or is all the parking going to be on the street?
Garage.
Here's
They're
the-
gonna have
yeah, you can see that.
garage.
Underground?
No,
Three,
no,
Oh, street
4
level.
feet semi.
And how many parking spaces will they be in the
Let me
garage?
explain. The parking will be surface. Another one regarding the safety. Usually when we have a parking underground, so it comes out very fast to the ramp, no one can see that, and it's so dangerous. In this case, we limit the number of the unit, so it is surface parking. So when it is surface parking, it is very safe, because there is not any angle, and they come slowly, and then we open two sides to create a better angle, that when they will go out, will be safe.
And then
So
how
this
many
is-
parking spots will there be on the surface parking lot?
On the surface, how, excuse me?
They
11
ask
we
us
calculate
8,
that.
it's 8 for, 2 for each residence, which is 4
8
units,
parking
it's gonna be
spots.
8 plus,
Plus guests.
plus handicap, plus guest and 2 bicycle.
You mean, so there's 8 parking spots for a normal
Yes.
vehicle plus
Two
2
for the
in
guests.
addition, plus bicycle?
One for guest, one for handicap.
Uh-huh.
Total of
You have room.
10.
There's room. for that many.
Excuse me?
There's room for that many.
You could put it.
You have a nice client, so I work
No, that,
long
I
time
didn't,
to
I didn't
answer
think,
because
yeah.
I believe that I told them in the beginning, because we're supposed to go through very simple sketch. But I told them it is better that in the beginning we design it, and later on, when the committee approve that, and then we come back, we cannot deliver, that is not right. It's better that we spend more time on that, to have more parking, more work, more congested, whatever, to have one or two cars more, it is better for them and neighbor.
Sir,
But one or two, it works that in the.
did you say there are going to be 2 entrances on the garage?
No, it's not possible because
There's no.
He
as a
said that it was
layout,
gonna,
it is
he
very
said it was gonna be
difficult.
open on 2 spots so you could have a better angle to see.
Gotcha, thank you, 2 choices.
Okay, so there has been a motion, there's been a second. I'd like to vote on this motion. All those in favor of the motion?
Oh, we have some discussion, and I may have a couple amendments.
Well, we've been having discussion, and we're way over time.
I know, but, you know,
Well-
one amendment is to clarify that the rear setback, I'd prefer to say the rear setback shall be 15 feet no matter what, even if the city doesn't approve the building line. Our resolution, it needs to be amended to say the building line shall be eliminated too, and the front setback shall be 15 feet. Because otherwise, if we're not exactly right on all 4 sides, the planners are going to approve something different and find loopholes. So I proposed that. And then I also wanted to ask you about, this is a 4-story building next to a 2-story building and a 1-story building. And I always push for a step back of about 10 feet on the 4th story so the neighbors have some more sunlight and breezes and they don't have a 4-foot wall 8 feet from their property line. So those are some amendments I'd like to put in. So would anyone second? Or I guess I have to ask the chair if I make those amendments.
Well, I guess I'm confused because this was your motion.
I'm allowed to
So,
amend.
I understand, but now we've taken 20 minutes on something that shouldn't have taken that long to come up with amendments later on. And I don't understand exactly what the amendments are. So you're saying on item 3, under the facts, you want to amend the setbacks there?
Yeah, there is setback.
Can we just vote on the fact that if they get the 15 feet in the front of the city, they should hold the 15 feet
Yeah,
in the
that's what I
back.
mean.
Yeah.
So can we just go with that?
Yeah, that's one
It's gonna be the city
amendment.
that's gonna make the decision.
Right, that was one of my amendments.
Okay, okay. And what's the second amendment?
What do you guys think about requiring a 10-foot step back on the 4th story so the 2 shorter buildings next to it have more sunlight and, more breezes?
Jay Handel and then I'll give you.
Okay, so, this is really not the right way to be doing this when we talk about committees doing their work. Okay, we're now sitting here redesigning a project after having public comment, discussion, a motion, a second, and ready to vote, and our own plum chair is redesigning the project now. So I'm gonna make the motion. Is this timely? Do you have a hearing coming up?
Yes, we
When?
applied for a hearing.
When?
They didn't tell us.
I'd like to move this be remanded back to Plum and bring back a proper motion that we can vote on, not rehash, regurgitate, and rediscuss for 45 minutes.
Here's what I think is.
That's my motion. My motion is to remand it back to Plum.
I'm not gonna take your motion at the time, we're gonna hear from the architect first.
First of all, we have a deadline, and after 3 times extension, if
That's
we will
the
not
issue.
submit by 2 days, totally they will reject the project, number 1. Secondly, regarding the setback at top level, respected to the sunshine codes that we have problem, because if we set back to the 4th level, it doesn't affect on anything at all on sunshine, because it is to the north side. It is not to south that exactly the angle of the sunshine is in the north side, so it doesn't have any effect on the light or ventilation with the neighbor.
Because you have all the parking space back right there anyway. making the space before your next neighbor, the one with the smaller house.
Yeah, already we accept that, so it doesn't affect that we set back there. It's fourth floor, the angle
Right,
is
that's one man's
45.
opinion, but then there's the neighbors who have to stare at a 4-foot high wall, and when you have a one-story
Okay,
house,
But I
it's
think,
two-story.
I think they're
So that's,
also
you know, that's-
developing too,
yeah.
right?
Yes, that's an alternate.
We are not sending, I don't think we should send this back to Plum because these people have been here
Yes.
3 times and they've gone back and
Yes.
forth with Plum. I think that what we should do is accept that the first thing was really just a clarification, right? What Danielo clarified. It's not really an amendment, it's a clarification to what's written. And call the question.
Well, I propose an amendment, so anyone like to?
I'll call the question.
A motion to call the question
Well, there's
supersedes.
an amendment.
It supersedes an amendment and it hasn't been
You have to
seconded.
vote on the call of the
You have to
question.
vote on the call
So
of the
no
question.
amendments, so no amendments
No,
are allowed?
calling the question means that we will then vote on the Plum motion that was submitted to us with the clarification that Daniela put in. So all those in favor
We
of calling
discuss
the
it?
question, there's no discussion on calling the
Why?
questions per Robert's rules. All
Well, I'd
those
like to
in,
be in the queue to discuss it, because there are a few things.
discuss
I
the
would
motion?
To,
Discuss calling the question, that's all you get to
Yeah,
discuss.
you can't, but you can't call the you can't discuss calling the question, it's
What
not
is calling the
debatable.
question? I'm sorry, I don't know.
Calling the question means that we will vote on the motion.
Debate is closed, you take a vote.
So all those in favor of calling the question, please raise your hands. And 1, 2, 3.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
The question has been called. It required 3/4. It has been called. Now we will be voting on approving the Plum motion with Danielo's clarification as written. All those in favor, please raise your hands.
So no amendments are allowed, correct?
Correct.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
All those opposed? J. Ross? All abstentions? Disa and Rosie. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We promise really to build a very good, because we're gonna
We
give
don't have to
ourselves.
promise. Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
It's gonna be a good project.
Obviously, I'm a valley boy and I love it, you know, but that's a different story. I like to look at mountain, to go to the stream, but when we bought this house, because I love her and she wanna move here, you know, the
For
law.
traffic, driving.
When we bought this house, people didn't wanna show inside, you know, for your information. And they said, why you want to look at inside? He's selling really the land. And I said, okay, we looked at it, and I said, then we want to rent it, because we didn't have money and, you know, all this thing.
I'm not.
We have spent $60,000, because that's the kind of people we are. We want to, if you go over there, that's the only house that's
Those
like
knows that.
Oasis. Even though we want to demolish it, but because I
Then
told
you
the neighbor,
can-
if I don't want to live there, I don't want anybody else live there. Go
Well-
look at it once, and you see that house is totally different than any other.
We look forward to having you all as good neighbors. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it.
Jerry spent so much time. I want to thank you, though he wasn't pro it, but he spent so much time. I just
I try to make
appreciate the time.
projects that are good for the neighbors in addition to the
know.
developers. That's why I push it.
Yeah, I know,
Good
no,
come
I
to-
appreciate the time you
come
spent,
to
just like
Florida.
when you know, from 6,000, if you
I know,
are
and that's why I
lucky,
voted
you're gonna
against
get
it, 'cause
2,500.
I don't think it
From a
prioritizes
6,000
the community.
No, just like when you, you know
Okay,
that from.
thanks folks. I'm
Good
gonna
luck
have
to
to
the
have to
property
leave now.
owners.
Thank you.
All right.
Very much.
Thank you. Sure, you can take those.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Where's the parking?
Here you go. You can have that one, actually.
Oh, I see, it's behind the bushes. Behind the bushes.
Okay, we are gonna move on.
Nice to see you.
Can I ask you guys to keep that outside so we can have it here? Thank you.
USC,
Good night, sir.
he needs to go from Thornton National. I had to accident once.
I don't have accident.
Driving. Otherwise, we have a nice house.
Is it that's your
It's
address?
just 2006.
Great. Great, thank you very much.
Try
I
to do that
appreciate it.
stop sign for by the
Yeah, yeah, I can read you, you have my number, I appreciate that. Any recommendation after that.
Okay, let's get back on track, folks. The next item on the agenda, going back in order, is item number 6, which is to elect members to both the Outreach and Public Safety Committees.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good
Thank
luck with
you.
your project.
Okay, so I guess we'll open it up first to the Outreach Committee, to volunteers. Disa. J. H. I'll volunteer. Okay, Disa, JH, and Jamie, anybody else? Daniela? Okay. Okay, so that's it. Right, so all those in favor of Disa being on the outreach committee, please raise your hands. All opposition?
Wait, how many are we, can we put on? 4.
Oh, we can only put on 4, right, yes.
So that's,
Right, so we have 4 people, we can only have 4 total.
yeah,
So
there's one.
So somebody cannot get elected to this. But I'll withdraw my name. So now we don't have a problem. All right, so Disa, was there any opposition? Okay, no abstentions. Do you want to take your name off? You can do that instead.
Jamie, you're on the committee.
I'm de facto if somebody's not there.
No.
Okay, all those in favor, huh?
For Disa, because I didn't see everyone's hand go for Disa.
Yeah, all Disa? Disa? Anybody opposed? I guess maybe what I should ask. Any abstentions? Rose, okay. Jay Handel. All those in favor of Jay Handel on the outreach committee, please raise your hands. All opposition? All abstentions. Rosie. All right, all those in favor of Danilo on the outreach committee, please raise your hands. Any objection? Abstentions? Rosie. All right, outreach committee, done. Public safety committee, any volunteers? Oh, Ron and Jay, all right? Jay Handel. I'm gonna have to start calling you guys by your last names. Okay, anybody else for the public safety committee? Danilo, you're on fire tonight. All right.
I'm sorry, this
I'll
Ron?
regret it, I'll regret it.
Ron, Jay Handel, and Danilo. All those in favor of Ron on the public safety committee, please raise your hands. All those opposed? Abstentions? All right. Jay Handel on the public safety committee. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Rose. Danilo. All those in favor? Raise your hands. All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Oh, you're abstaining from that?
No, I have a question because remember we were talking before about splitting outreach
Well, that-
into communications and also.
But that motion got, that motion did not get approved. It could try for a standing rules and we could work that later, but that, the motion as it was did not get approved.
Is there one more spot on the committee?
There are, yes, there is one more spot. Do you want to volunteer? Okay, Disa. All those in favor, Disa, public safety. All those in favor? All those opposed? Disa for public safety as well.
Yeah, I got it.
All right, abstentions? Rosie, okay. Okay,
I have a
great.
question though, because weren't there some stakeholders who were also applying to be on these committees? I understand there's one person at least who wanted to be on outreach. And she had submitted an application.
Do we have an application?
I have not seen any applications.
Oh, yeah, it was Alexa. So we can vote on her. Actually, it was her. So all those in favor of putting Alexa on the outreach committee? All those opposed? Any abstentions? So she's been elected in abstention. Good job to Alexa. Somebody please inform her of when the meeting was happening. Yes, it was unanimous. Thank you, Rosie, for that. I forgot about her email.
Was it
So, yes.
Sylvie or just Alexa?
I think it was just Alexa, but if there's somebody else, we'll vote on it next time.
Okay.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is item number 7, which is a motion to reconsider a vote on 11800 Santa Monica Boulevard CUP. That is not happening because the developer was not notified in a timely manner. So they will not be here to present anything, so we can reconsider that next time. Or reconsider, yes, or consider reconsidering. Okay.
If I just ask a question, is it a reconsideration or just a new vote? Because we didn't come to a decision last time, so is that technically a reconsideration or is it just a new motion? Presented on a previous.
It can be a new motion, it doesn't have to be a motion to reconsider, I don't think, because the motion itself failed, so if there was a new motion, it would be a new motion.
Okay.
But it needs to be
Thank you.
there needs to be some substantive change for it to be a new motion, which I
Okay,
assume
thank you
there
for
will be.
clarifying.
Yeah. So it may not be a motion to reconsider that we're talking about next time, but a new motion.
Does this have to do with the addition of the enclosure or something like that?
Yes,
But was there supposed to be new information that was supposed to be?
right, but we're not
Yeah.
considering it because the developer wasn't told in
Right, I
time
didn't
to
tell
be here.
them quickly enough, I dared.
And then the next, now we're gonna go to Plum stuff, but my understanding is that item number 8A is actually not gonna be considered because they can't be here, so we're gonna do that next time. Is that correct?
Correct.
So that's January. And will they be able to make it in January?
So far, yes. I'll
Okay,
monitor that.
so one thing I would like to say, since I did send out an email asking people to make sure they get a hold of both sides of something, if there is a situation where you reach out to an opposing side of something, or a side of something, and they repeatedly refuse to come, but there's a time limit, please let me know that so we can consider it without them coming.
Yeah.
Okay? Jay
So
and
just
then Eric.
just as a point of information, under the Brown Act, 8, C, D, E, F, G, don't meet the guidelines of a posting because it doesn't tell you anything about what it is we're doing, and the Brown Act requires you can have up to 20 words or more with a description of what it is we're actually talking about, so stakeholders, when they get the agenda and they see crosswalk resolution, they have no idea what that means.
What is up to 20 words?
Well, also, I would point out that it was posted with all of these.
Right, but the agenda itself has to be very specific in the agenda, and it specifies in the Brown Act. I think, you know, these are items that are probably nebulous and doesn't matter, but
In the future,
in the
we will endeavor to do
future, I
that.
would just urge us to make sure that we comply with the Brown Act in our agenda posting.
What's up to
Thank you.
20 words or more?
Yes, Eric.
Do you, when, did they just cancel like today or something, the other presentation from the Trident building? Or,
That's not Granville.
I'm sorry, there was but wasn't there another presentation that, I mean, it was on the,
Plum?
That was on the Plum Committee.
Yeah.
The Trident Center's coming to the Plum Committee though, right?
Oh, okay, so that wasn't for here.
No,
Okay.
that wasn't for here.
All right, sorry. And they're gonna come to the Plum Committee still?
No. If you look on the agenda, it says
Okay.
no discussion, just updates.
Oh, okay, 'cause I thought there was a person coming from the
People are listed, but it does not say development presentation.
Okay.
It says updates.
Okay.
No consideration or motions.
Okay, so crosswalks. Well, why don't you give us a brief overview of C, D, E, F, and G? J.
Find it. There are
See the sidewalk repair one.
crosswalks. You may not have printed it.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. Voted to recommend signalized crosswalks with high visibility striping be installed at these locations and vehicle traffic signals not be installed. Santa Monica and Berry, Mid-Block, Idaho and Barrington, Sawtell and Nebraska. It's here in the packets.
I move it.
Second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? Abstentions? Great. Seeing none. Yeah, let's move on to sidewalk repairs.
Can I bring up a point though? So
No, well, okay, I am gonna let you bring it up this time, but I want to be clear that after a thing has been moved and seconded, and we've called for discussion, and we voted on the item, you can no longer speak to the item, it's done. But for this time, so,
okay, just want to bring attention to the fact that the request is also not to install vehicle traffic
Yes.
signals. Okay, so is that possible to emphasize that if this is being forwarded to?
sure, somebody can put it in bold for me before they send it to me to sign.
Okay.
Okay, let us move on to, and for future reference, it could be emphasized in the thing that I received, so then we would know. Sidewalk repairs, Jay? Ross?
Okay, Plum voted recommend revisions to the sidewalk repair ordinance and approved authorization to submit a CIS. There is the Community Forestry Advisory Committee has some recommendations about the sidewalk repairs, about how it impacts mostly trees in the Urban Forestry Division. So they presented it to us, and we came up with some recommendations in Plum. This is well, you guys know that a lot of the sidewalks have trees, putting them up in urban forestries, and they have this ordinance on how to repair them that they're doing an EIR report right now. This would be as part of the public comments. So these are the recommendations we have. Increased funding for the Urban Forestry Division, create a tree inventory and database that the community can access and view easily, moratorium on tree removal until the EIR is completed. It's either this December or next December, and this is what Ron was getting at when we started discussion. A tree replacement ratio of 4-to-1 instead of the current 2-to-1. Best practices in tree installation. Study the impact of the tree losses that are going on right now. The impact of tree loss on new species and wildlife, and the new species of trees on wildlife that are being proposed. Make a maintenance plan for future growth and telling residents how to care for trees properly, and then future assessments of how these tree plantings are going and the impacts on the environment and the community. So that's the short version.
Would you like to amend to add the ADA thing before it's a full motion for consideration?
Yes, I would.
Is it a friendly amendment?
Yeah, let's just clarify it is for trees that impact ADA, consider ways to fix the ADA problem and expedite any trees that create ADA problems, be it tree removal, rubberized sidewalks, or expanding the sidewalk around it so that to preserve the tree. Is that what you're getting at, Ron?
Expedite it, but not requiring preserving the tree.
Right, so it could be, this could be an exception to the moratorium.
Right.
So I'd move it that way.
It's been moved, is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. All those, any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, guys, we're on a roll. Let's keep it going. E, permanent supportive housing.
Wait, I'm so sorry. There was a motion about this, there was a CIS wording on that thing about the trees, and I just want to say, because if there's no council file, and if it was kind of blank, I just feel a little uncomfortable seeing that on, Jay, I know we kind of have this ongoing kind of discussion about the CIS, but I just want to be careful about that, because I think it sends a wrong message until we actually have the actual CIS wording.
Are you talking about the tree thing?
Yeah, there's even one on the tree.
Well, you can see, what she's referring to is here in the motion where it says council file 17 dash blank. That's because there's not a council file.
Right. So if
but the reason I do this is to set it up so whenever the council file comes, we can just submit it instead of having to come back and put it on the agenda.
Right.
Because the CIS is just a mode of communication. It's not a new policy document. So as long as the policy is decided.
But that wasn't my understanding, and maybe Jasmine could or Jay could.
So is this to accompany the motion that was passed or that was introduced before at Simone, or is this something different?
This is a different one.
There's two different things. So there's actually a sidewalk repair program, but then there was that scoping. There was a.
Well, let's get okay. So that's a separate issue. Let's get a clarification on Naomi's larger question about whether or not to include a blank council file number on something.
So, Madam Chair, if I can?
Yes.
So you can't do a CIS if there's no council file. And it's kind of like doing a Public Records Act request when nothing's been done, but you know it's coming up in the future. So you can't do it that way. But what I would say is there is already a sidewalk ordinance that was passed, and there's a council file on that sidewalk ordinance. So what you should do is look up that sidewalk ordinance council file and send this CIS into that existing file that they will see. So when they bring something new back, they will always refer back to the original ordinance if what they're going to do is amend it, and then then we can file it again. You'll get something from the city clerk that says, an ordinance has superseded, blah, 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 or a file has superseded. You may want to send another CIS.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that does lead to some clarification on this one. I think Naomi's question was maybe even more broad than that, where we have a motion because we know something is going to be coming up. There isn't a file yet. There's no ordinance in place. There's no anything. I think she's really asking about the propriety of including in any motion council file number X when it's not there. That it should be taken out.
X.
Right, there should be X's put in.
Yeah, you can't do it.
Right, I mean, so the question is, should there even be a placeholder that says, and this might be a Jasmine question, is there what in the hell is that sound? It's horrible. Is there a council, should it even say council file number 17 dash whatever? Or should we take that off? if there is no council file open.
And if there's no specific CIS language, there's resolution, I understand that, but it's not the exact wording that if somebody was uploading a CIS, I don't see that quite yet.
Because you can't tie it to anything, so it's just.
Well, and what Naomi's saying is that the actual language for CIS is not there, that this is just really the language for a letter for a resolution. There's specific language for CIS.
Well, I had a question, because which
Is
council
there-
file is it going to? Because there's one file already with the ordinance, but then there's also the one.
Well, that's what I'm saying, so if there's
There's
already,
two
if
separate
there
files.
are already a council file, as Jay was saying, we write what that council file is, and we write, this is the statement that is the CIS, and we take a vote, yes, it's a CIS, and we approve. So that was my understanding for the CIS, because I looked up on Empower, but there were still a few things that weren't quite clear about the instructions, and I think that's where we were kind of getting into
So
some issues.
can I recommend that we just, bring the CIS itself back at the next meeting? We should have, CISs should be concise. It can't be a floating document. So, in the past, when I was chair and we did a CIS, basically what we did was we took the adopted motion, and that was the CIS. And we put that in as a CIS statement, because that's what we passed, and we gave them the vote as well in that information. We didn't get into a long, lengthy debate about it. We just told them what it was and what the vote was. But when you don't have a council file, or you have an ambiguous statement, you really have to have a statement if you're not going to use the actual board motion. So either bring back a statement, affirm CIS, and if you don't have a council file to tie it to, then don't bring it back as a CIS, bring it back as a letter you want sent to the mayor, to the street services people, to the city council people, so that everyone's put on notice what we've done until there's a council file.
So do you want the ordinance for the treat, prepared
Yeah.
to treat?
Yeah.
It's 177404. That's the actual
I'm
ordinance.
sorry, repeat that.
177404.
Thank you.
It's on the agenda.
Yeah, but that's not the council file to be able to
But that's
file
not
with
what-
CIS
It was
ordinance.
unclear to me that the motion,
No,
you know,
there is
like-
a council file number.
Is there?
yeah.
Do you have
But if
it?
there's a
Yeah, it's
motion,
on the agenda.
Council, it is?
Item 3, letter
but I think it was in
But that's-
the attachment, like what was sent out. So,
This is a different,
Yeah.
so we're crossing ordinances again.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a different ordinance. The protected
This
tree
is the
ordinance
sidewalk
is what
one,
Linda
right,
was talking
right,
about.
correct.
This is a sidewalk ordinance.
Oh,
They're
I'm sorry.
different things.
Right.
Sorry.
So
Yeah.
the
So,
question
we'll
is,
just go ahead.
I think, when presented in such a manner as Jay Ross has presented them to us here, whether or not it had a council file number on the top of it, could we adopt it as a CIS prior to the board
Right.
voting it on a motion? Can we, at the same meeting, vote a motion and a CIS in? I believe that that's one of you, that's what
I
you're
have,
having.
I have a
That's a question.
concern because, yes, a CIS
Yes.
has more power later if people go down to downtown. So I think we have to be careful. It's not just like a casual thing with like a motion. I think we have to understand the implications of the CIS, from what I understand, about how that impacts what happens in downtown. I may be mistaken, but I want to just be more careful, because when I asked about CISs, I thought that it was important that we have somewhere on the website very specific language that here are all the CISs that were passed by this board, and I don't think it should be kind of just, you know, it needs to be more specific, and I think it needs to be a record, because if we are, tree ordinance is different, but I'm saying a lot of times these are for more important, not more important, but things that, you know,
But all that
a
comes
lot of
out through the
conflicts.
resolution we pass, and you just reformat it. This text comes from Dunn, and it's the community impact statement text right here. The only thing we do is we put in the resolution text right here.
But then I'd
So
like to
it's-
say that this is, you know, so maybe the resolution, you can have a resolution, I think there has to be a separate thing saying this is the CIS statement.
Yeah, this
Jeff,
is the
can you
text
clarify
right
this?
here.
Because this has been
This
going
is-
back and forth from email for like 5 days,
Yeah.
and now we've been talking about it for 20 minutes, and
This
we need
is-
clarity.
Yeah, so having this clause that all items on the agenda are subject to discussion, possible action, and filing of a community impact statement to the office of the city clerk. You guys have that like disclaimer on there, it's a catch-all, but that
Because that's
doesn't
from the
mean.
Empower website too.
I know,
Yeah.
right, but, and it's great that you have it on there because then people know it's always subject to a CIS. But it just being subject to one and actually having the finished, completed version that you're gonna vote on is what we recommend and what you guys should be doing when you're gonna pass the CIS, when you're gonna adopt it. It should come to the board written as a letter. If it doesn't have a council file number, write it as a letter to whomever you want to send it to. If it does have a council file number, write it with that council file number as a CIS. And then you will have read it before coming to the meeting because it'll go out with the agenda. And then you come in and discuss, yeah, we want to pass it. No, we don't want to pass it. Yeah, but change this line. And then it's already written instead of this nebulous, let's file a CIS on this topic, and then no one takes the initiative to actually write it, and then you gotta bring it back and
Well, we do
discuss
have it written
Well,
here,
so
that's
yeah,
not the
that,
problem,
that's
it's
what,
right here.
that's what's not getting clarified. This is the question. Jay Ross writes his motions in the form of a letter that would be used as a CIS, with several blanks for what was the vote like, etc. So it's done. What you're talking about, this is the letter. This thing that we're looking at is the potential CIS. Naomi's issue is a CIS seems to be something that's more powerful than just a board resolution. And should we be doing this for every motion? And is it a good idea to have them tied together? And what is Dunn's guidance on that?
What makes
Is
the
that your question?
CIS more powerful than a board resolution is the medium in which it's being filed.
Got it, okay.
So the way he's doing it is fine, and you're right, a CIS is more powerful. You guys are talking about the same things and we're all chasing our tails, like.
Got it, okay.
Write it like that, and what makes it powerful is the act of going in and uploading it and actually filing it. Because then when your council member goes to vote on that council file,
it will be
how you voted is reflected, and that's where the power comes from.
But it should also have the broad information about where the board stands. So I think we are, I understand, which we are in agreement on, and I think just because some of the wording on the empowered side, I have to tell you, is a little bit contradictory on some of the things. Just, so I'm just gonna, I just need to say that because one of the things also on there about CISs was that it talked about needing the full board to approve a CIS, not just a quorum. It needed a full board. That bothered me a lot because I thought, I know a lot of CISs are filed without that, but it was on there.
Yeah, it's in here.
And so, and that really bothered me because, and I also knew that when we were fighting the Bundy project, because we had general approval that we were, had serious reservations about the Cadillac project, then they gave more time to those people, folks who came down to actually talk in City Hall. And I thought that was huge. That's huge. If you have a CIS, it gives you a lot more power downtown.
Yes.
So,
What do they mean by full board? Does it mean all 15 members have to be there, or is it just a general catch-all, the full board?
What it means is it can't be just the CIS filers. Okay, the board has to vote on it. It doesn't have to be unanimous.
Full board or quorum?
It has to be based on your bylaws. Whatever approves a motion, it's another motion that's approved to do a filing. Okay, that's what it means. It doesn't have to be 15-0 or 14-0 if there's only 14 people.
No, I just meant that does that mean the full board has to be in presence to vote?
No.
And then maybe throwing it back at bylaws committee, I would like maybe some of the standing rules to clarify the CIS, because I think I would love to do more CISs, and I would love to know what past CISs have been done. I've asked for that. I don't have it. I think it's just a good thing to know what has been passed for a bunch of developments here in West LA.
Yeah.
And I think people have a right to know that.
I think that's a great idea, adding that to your website, having it, yeah, I agree with you.
So can we do it with a blank?
I also agree that
That's the
we need
next
to clarify some of that CIS language on our website.
Do it as a letter, and you can reserve it as a council file for later.
Okay, well, great. So that made nothing more clear. Let's move on to letter E. right? But it's true, like,
So
we're
did
at
we
the
vote
same-
on this? Yeah, we did vote
Yeah.
on this.
Okay, so 8E is regarding permanent supportive housing. Jay Ross.
Permanent supportive housing, city has an ordinance that it is a bit controversial. It gives lots of developer incentives to permanent supportive housing, which, as we all know, is the most at-risk members of society, mental illness, formerly homeless. So if you pass this, you have to be comfortable with some things like some extra density, some reduced parking. This is kind of similar to Tom Safran's project that came through. So, but it's a trade-off. Obviously, the more incentives and the bigger the project is, the more economies of scale, and the less taxpayer money from the housing department that developers have to request. So it's in your packet. I move the exact details.
It's been moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. There discussion on this motion? All those in favor?
Wait, I'm sorry, what do you mean expedited planning review?
That's a factual background that projects built under this ordinance get expedited review, so they don't have to wait around so long.
Wasn't it a state thing that they
Yes.
passed as well?
Yeah.
So that's what we continue the message.
Yeah, we can't make any of the facts. The facts are what they are.
So I'm sorry, I don't exactly know what it is that we're voting for to
We're
say that.
recommended the city's proposed permanent supportive housing ordinance that would allow them expedited planning review, that they have to provide supportive services and dedicated 55-year affordability covenant, that zoning incentives will be allowed to include smaller unit sizes to allow for higher density and no parking.
But we're saying, are we just supporting the city's stand on permanent supportive housing that's already in place?
Proposal is to support the proposed ordinance that's going through council right now. And I sent out that fact sheet to all you guys too,
Yeah.
and so.
So
yeah.
just to support what the city is trying to push forward
Yes.
for permanent supportive
Yes.
housing units at this time.
Yes.
Moved and seconded.
Huh?
Moved and seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
I don't feel comfortable with an expedited review of the city. I think permanent supportive housing needs more community input, time for the community to research and respond for developments that are going to be in their community.
Jay,
Do you want to make that amendment?
well, Jay Ross, my question is, do you know what what expedited means under the city proposal?
So expedited, when you do a development, means that instead of waiting 9 to 12 months to get it through planning, it goes through, it still has a hearing process, but it gets expedited by the planners in 4 to 5 months versus 9 to 12 months. So it pushes up the process. In the planning department itself, it basically takes the big pile, and instead of putting it on the bottom, it brings it to the top so they can move it, get it expedited, and then work on other projects. People pay 50%, a normal developer, is that something anyone's ever heard in the same sentence? A normal developer pays 50% of his fees in addition to the 100%. Pays 150% fees to get a project expedited. This ordinance will allow people like Saffron and whomever else is building affordable housing to get people off our streets, not to have to pay an additional fee and to move the project so we can get people off the streets
But they
faster.
also get
I think-
subsidized things to actually build it. That's the whole thing about permanent supportive housing.
Well, and that's fine,
And they
and
get
that's
that,
fine.
right, I get that.
Well,
yeah.
and so,
So, yeah.
my question is, Jay Ross, because I know you guys do supportive housing or low-income housing, right? Is there any reason you should be recusing yourself from this vote?
I don't know.
I mean, would the city have any,
When in doubt, recuse.
You got it.
yeah,
But it's your decision, but
I
I'm
think
just
it's
saying.
too large, vague, it's a general overall ordinance, it's not project specific, doesn't
Okay.
affect West LA.
Will your company benefit from this?
Will my company benefit?
Yeah.
from
Will
this?
your
they going
company
after
benefit
any
from
permanent
expedited
supportive housing
processing in the
dollars?
pro?
It may be,
Then it's a recuse.
yeah, but it's up to me, right?
it's up to you.
Yeah,
It is up to you, but
I
you
choose
do,
not to recuse myself.
you do risk tainting an item if a conflict is found later, so,
I'll risk that
okay.
taint.
Okay, so any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? Danilo, Rosie, Naomi, any abstentions? Okay, great. All right, F. Resolution regarding resolutions. This is getting so Kafka-esque.
Isn't that what they do online?
I
Yeah.
hate that word. I hate that word. People say it all the time and don't know what it means.
Oh, I know what it means.
I know. I know you do.
And we're here. That's where we're at, Jasmine. All right. Jay Ross, tell us about this resolution.
This came out of Plum because this came out of planning department hearings, and you know, again, sorry for being picky and stuff, but we felt like this was something that needed to be made clear to developers, agencies, and the council office. Sometimes people try to speak on behalf of the neighborhood council and say, oh, they meant this, they meant that. And this is to send a notice and put this text on our resolutions that only the neighborhood council speaks for itself. As you know, in legal terms, speaking for someone else is called hearsay, and it's in municipal court. These hearings are obviously not court, but I think that's a fair standard, and I'd like our neighborhood council to be clear. And there are, you know, there's one hearing in particular about the Gateway project, and you guys know how we had some, whatever you want to call it, complexity in figuring out what our position was. But in the end, we took a position, and at that hearing, the council representative and the developer were trying to speak on our behalf and explain. And the reason, and that's the reason why we came up with this resolution, to make it clear that no one should speak on behalf of us except us.
Move it.
Second.
All right, well, now there's discussion. Maybe my amendment will be friendly, but I would actually strike the findings and justification at number 2.
Where's it?
It's the, in legal terms, testimony from a third party who testifies on behalf of another party is hearsay and not admissible in court.
What page we on?
I don't know, toward the end.
Yellow?
Yeah, it's a yellow page.
Not all of them are yellow, because I ran out of white paper.
I think Ron is
It's
yellow.
from the end, but it says agenda 8F on top.
It's this one.
Agenda 8.
Next to include the resolution.
What did you want to strike?
I just want to strike the second findings and justification.
In legal terms, testimony, well, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
because,
we're not supposed to be giving legal advice.
well, not just that, but it's of oversimplification of
Yeah.
hearsay. Other than that,
It's all good.
all right, is it a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Striking number 2. Any other discussion on this item? All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? Abstentions? All right.
Unanimous?
Unanimous. Speed limits. J. Ross, take it away.
Oh, I dug up this old resolution from 2009. You know, you guys know the problem with the speed trap rule where they do a speed survey and then that establishes the speed limit instead of what's actually safe. And my idea was change the state law so the speed limits are based on public safety. So this resolution is old. It kind of is a little bit outdated, but I think, you know, it kind of tells what I'm getting at, and I want to see if you guys are interested in doing something like this.
Oh, so this is not something you want to move, this is something you...
No, I mean, I do move this, but it's open for discussion.
Well, I think I would actually support this if it was updated to reflect, you know, the right people in it. So I think that updating the actual thing with the proper dates and all of that, and making sure all of the, you know, findings are still true, I think we should consider it next time with all of that stuff updated. Is there any other thought on that? Like, it doesn't need to talk about Bill Rosenthal, for example, but we shouldn't be sitting here tonight.
We'll
and
move to postpone it for accurate resolution.
Yeah. He's active, yeah. All right, so it's been moved to postpone it. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on postponing? All those in favor? All those opposed? 1. Any abstentions?
Who opposed?
Jay Ross. But bring it back next time. I'll put a note.
Yep.
Okay. Resolution regarding plum guidelines. That is 8H.
This is 3 pages, so I don't know if I can read it all to you.
No,
Do
thank you.
you want to?
Give us the overview.
It's the cliff notes.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Cliff notes.
A lot of stuff is very basic. Let me see if there's There's one thing, if a committee member misses 3 consecutive meetings or 4 or 5, she shall be automatically removed, which we've discussed doing at board level too. Developers are requested to begin collaboration with our council in the conceptual stages to get community input as early as possible. We ask for development team members to disclose campaign contributions to CD11 of the mayor. We ask them to provide documents and paper copies. No Plum member will disseminate any communication that implies that such communication represents the position of the whole neighborhood council unless authorized by the board of directors, because the board is the one who speaks, not even Plum, not even a Plum member, because some Plum members were asking, well, can I go to a hearing if I support something? And we said you can as an individual, but you cannot mention neighborhood council, which we've discussed before. Plum members may represent neighborhood council if authorized by the board of directors. Discussed that before. Plum shall disclose any financial relationships or gifts received or promised from applicants and shall not accept gifts in the future from any applicants who have submitted projects. So those are kind of it. Anyone has questions?
Okay, hold on a second. I got Danilo and I have Jay Handel. Go ahead, Danilo.
No, I was just gonna say that good things.
Great, I'm glad. Thanks, Danilo. I appreciate that. Jay Handel.
So clarification, I'm reading from the sheets that I printed that I got, and under Plum membership number 2, you lined out A, B, and E.
Correct.
So I would move the document leaving in 2A, which we just discussed in a prior agenda item about board numbers. B, which we approved in the last round earlier tonight, removing A and B, and
Removing the strikeout?
removing the strikeout and putting it back in because we just voted on it earlier. And E, where it says a committee member may be removed by a vote of the board, that is the only one who can remove a board member, committee member, because the board appoints the committee member. The committee appoints the chair. So the board would have to remove the committee member, not anybody on the committee or the chair. Because whoever puts them on takes them off. So I'm gonna move the whole thing for purpose of getting moving by putting A, B, and E back in under Plum membership, so we have A through E.
I thought we voted against it.
You can't put that on because that's
Yeah,
that's
these are
specific to
guidelines,
the
so I
club.
think.
You can't do that.
Yeah, the committee.
Well, actually,
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and say as chair, I don't think you can do any of this because I think these are standing rules for a committee, which is specifically prohibited. So, I'm gonna say that the entire motion is out of order.
Okay.
Because this is effectively standing rules for a
I
committee.
withdraw it.
Can they be considered guidelines as different?
I would say no.
No.
I think that they should probably be incorporated into our standing rules if they're gonna be standing rules and be in for every committee. So, I don't think it's appropriate to discuss.
I move not to discuss it.
All right. Okay.
So just to clarify, can these be made part of the board's standing rules for committees?
Yes, I think that those should be appropriately discussed and moved as standing rules. If there are Plum-specific guidelines that Plum wants to enact with its developers, like what they should be giving people, when they should be showing up, what those communications should be looking like, I don't think you need to bring that to the board. But if you want to talk about attendance at committee meetings, qualifications for committee members, how committee members are removed, that's either a bylaws issue or a standing rules issue, and it can't be a separate committee issue.
Okay.
So, because you guys can't have different committee rules for Plum than you do for outreach or for whatever, they all need to be the same.
Yes.
Okay, great. We did the bylaws committee report. Budget advocate report, Jay Handel.
Real simple. I mean, the initial white paper has just come out. The full white paper will come out in January. We're meeting with 38 departments, 5 sets of unions, and the city has still got a structural deficit of over $250 million. So if you're looking to increase your services soon, don't. There will be a regional budget day, January 20th. The west side will be in the West LA hearing room in the municipal building on January 20th from 9 to 12. And we would encourage every stakeholder to come, not just board members and committee members, but every stakeholder to come. And I'd asked our communications director we'll get him the information to get it out, because we need to hear from people. What are they angry about? You know, we know traffic, we know homeless, you know, but there's a lot of issues out there where the city's not fulfilling its obligation to spend our money correctly. So we need to hear that from everybody. Thank you.
All right, great. Yeah.
I went to it last year for part of it, and it was very interesting and very useful. And you know, they ask you what are ways to raise revenue for the city. And like one of them I suggested was do an inclusionary housing fee upon developers, and that is something the city council either approved or is considering seriously. So it's a good place to get input. It's well run.
Great. All right. Outreach chair report.
There's no meeting yet.
Okay.
So we'll have it next year.
I have something for outreach. Can you please plug, if you don't mind, Ignite, the girls leadership program that we're doing? And Rosie, thank you for connecting us with uni high students. And Danilo, thank you for encouraging your daughter to apply. So please encourage the young women in your life to apply. Also, Ignite, horrible name timing wise, but we did not choose it. It is curriculum that we bought, that they named that, so I apologize for the bad timing. Thank you.
Okay, next we're on to item number 12, discussion and possible motion regarding reconsideration policy. I don't remember who wanted me to put this on, so
I did.
Okay, great. Jay handled that.
So our interpretation of a reconsideration policy is completely different than Robert's rules, and completely different than the Brown Act and the city. And I think we should be more in line with how the city operates than being rogue and doing it ourselves. So the law on reconsideration is you can bring it up at the same meeting if you decided, oh, I screwed up and we need to redo this, and you can make a motion to reconsider at the same meeting after a vote. If you don't do it at the same meeting, it must be brought up at the very next meeting, provided only someone on the winning side of the vote can bring the motion to reconsider. Number two, the board has not taken an action on it already. So, an example. If the Santa Monica Boulevard project, the CUB, a letter was already written to the ZA saying we approve it or we disapprove it. I know we didn't take an action, I'm just giving an example, so nobody jumps and goes, we didn't take an action. But if we had taken an action as a board already, it nullifies our ability to take a reconsideration. So you have to either do it at the same meeting or at the very next meeting, and it has to be brought up by someone on the winning side, and an action cannot have been taken on the item itself in order to do a reconsideration. And I'm going to suggest for the bylaws committee, I'd just like to move that we send that to the bylaws committee to have them mirror city policy, so we're in line with how our own government works, since we are a government entity working under their rules.
Yeah, I think that is reasonable. Is there any opposition to having the bylaws committee consider this? Okay, thanks, Jay. Okay, now we have the other J. All I've said all night is J. Item number 13, discussion and possible motion regarding ex parte communications by board members. J. Ross.
I'd like to have clarified what is the policy on who may speak and when and how, because I'm not clear on it. I have my opinions, but I want to.
On the ex parte communication?
With whom?
Yeah.
With parties wanting to do business with the board.
Oh, okay, so we don't have, the department doesn't have like an official guideline on ex parte communications for NCs, so other entities go off of Robert's rules.
Any board member can speak to anybody and disclose it. We're elected by everybody. We're elected to represent everybody. We had this discussion once before when we were talking about an ombudsman. Okay? This is again board members' responsibility. If a developer wants to go and talk to Jean can talk to the developer. Jean should disclose then that she had a conversation with the developer about the project because the project's going to be on her block. And the guy walked up and down the block. If we're trying to preclude, let's say, everybody but one or two people to be able to have any discussion, you know, it's going to be overridden by the fact that, you know, if someone's within 500 feet, they're going to be able to talk to them because it has a direct impact on their property. So I personally, and I'm just going to make it quick, you know, I'm personally against trying to stifle any board member's ability to speak to anybody in the community about anything in the community, because that's our job. That's what we got elected for.
I think that, I don't think that the issue for this ex parte, I may be misstating your issue, but I don't think that the issue is to stop people from talking in like what you're talking about, you know, a 500-foot radius or whatever. I think it is twofold. It is one, to make sure that people are not going out and representing that something that is their own belief is the position of the NC. So that whatever anybody is saying to a developer, to Bonan's office, to Sheila Kuehl, to anybody, if they're saying, hey, the NC took this position, it's actually a position that we took. There's actually a motion and that they're representing what the NC did. And when they're representing their own beliefs, they're very clear in saying, this is what I think. And then I think that the second thing is, to the extent that somebody has had some communications, whether it's scheduling or somebody called me the other night that Len told them to call me. I don't remember even what development they were from, and they were going up before city council like the next day and they wanted a recommendation from the board. It was like on a Sunday or something. And I said, I don't think that we voted on this project. I can't give you a recommendation. That's not what I do if you haven't been before us. So at some point they'll come before us and I'll go, yeah, that was the person I talked to. So to make sure that if you are having discussions with people, that the board knows about it. Right. I think that's the twofold problem that you're trying to address, right? Not to stop people from talking.
Yeah, not just regular stakeholder communications, but, you know, communications with a public agency on official positions, you know, is it, you know, and then on agenda items that, you know, parties that want to do business, you know, if you've talked to agenda, you know, my idea is, you know, we have an agenda item right at the top, disclosures, the next part of communications of every agenda, so we can announce.
Both the councils do that.
It also has to deal with public hearings at city council, where you fill out a speaker card, you identify yourself as West LA Neighborhood Council, West LA Sawtell Neighborhood Council, and then you go before council or the committee or CPC and say whatever you want to say, but you forget to say that you are speaking on behalf of yourself and not representing the neighborhood council unless you are authorized to do so.
Well, my thought on that is that I think that it is completely appropriate to have the standing rules, the bylaw standing rules committee come up with what they think those rules should be.
Okay.
Have the board vote on it.
Okay.
Have some disciplinary procedure. But I would caution all those people that discipline cuts both ways, and sometimes people do forget to say, this is just my position. Because I probably said that to whoever that woman was that called me on the phone the other day was, I can't say anything on behalf of the board. You're only talking to me. You called my cell phone. I don't have a position on this. But sometimes people do forget. So if you want to swing a hatchet, sometimes it's got two blades. That would be my caution. Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I think, so I'm almost thinking it's a little dangerous too. Well, I don't know if that's what you mean by this hatchet, but it is dangerous because let's just say the
sometimes my metaphors are falling flat. It's late in the evening.
No, but let's just say for the example of the sobering center, J Handle, you probably talked to 40 people. I don't know. Would that mean you have to disclose all 40 of those conversations at a meeting, or at what level is it? Like
that's just stakeholders, unless
you probably spoke to.
No, that's not the intent of this.
Maybe spoke to like Monin as well. You know, I don't know.
Oh well, that would be under the public agency or parties that
And
do
maybe Ron
business.
Migdal might have spoke to somebody too, and maybe someone else did too, but I don't know who spoke to who, but I wasn't sure if that needs to be disclosed, or is that just, that's gonna open up a can of worms, right? Like, we might be,
Well,
that's the you know, like, if we set that up to do it, we're gonna have to then figure out what that line is. I don't know what that line is.
also, I mean, I think that there needs to be another point of clarification about when is something ex parte. If you, schedule a developer to come to Plum and you CC another Plum committee member on it, have the two of you had ex parte communications?
Yes.
And so I would say that that's actually not really ex parte because there's somebody else in there that could vouch for you. Anyways, I think it's a standing rules issue, so I think that it's something, not a bylaws issue, I wanna be clear on that. I think it's a standing rules issue and it should be addressed by standing rules, bylaws and standing rules.
I have to disclose.
No, Danielo, no,
I have to
yes, you
disclose a
can.
discussion.
I think the ex parte thing is, we as individuals really don't have any power, but as a group we do.
Right.
So I think in the end, it's all pretty theoretical as to, if you talk to someone about it, in the end, we are the ones who make decisions in this room. And we don't have really much influence over the other.
Well, it's like we all get mad when the council has secret meetings with developers and it's for the voters, and when we have a meeting that's not disclosed, our stakeholders.
Well, no,
Or they
see,
serve.
about that, I was actually told by, what was that guy's name? Steve something? Stephen Box. He told me that I was not, that was the department's, like, policy, that you shouldn't have anybody from the NC meeting with a developer alone. And when I met with the Trident Center people, Len was
Right.
there and Ezra was there, because that's what he told me was the cure to that, make sure somebody from the councilman's office was there. So I've never had any conversations with the Trident Center people that somebody from Bonan's office wasn't there with, because that's what I was told.
Yeah, I mean, what I do with developers, I will not give them opinions, my personal opinions. I tell them, come here. The only communications I have is, schedule and process.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, well anyways, I think it's a
so
standing
anyways,
rules
we'll
issue.
do
Yeah.
a committee meeting, come up with a proposal.
Okay, since we didn't have anybody from LAPD here, do we need to discuss this right now?
I would say send it to public safety, because we did this when.
Great
Jim-
idea.
when
There's a
Jim-
public
when-
safety
When Jim
committee
was
now.
here
Yeah.
last time, he
Yeah.
made it clear, I'm not giving you information that we don't want to release, because it may be an investigation, an ongoing investigation.
Okay.
So I say, take it to the public safety.
So,
Good idea.
given that, do we need to elect officers or create a meeting time or anything?
You guys can do that after the meeting.
Okay.
Alright. And Danielo's on both, so he's gonna have scheduling conflicts, so you're gonna, it's gonna, him and Disa are gonna be busy.
Yeah.
Okay, any public comment for items not on the agenda? Any board comment and announcements?
I have one.
Yes.
I'm a little worried about just the amount of information and about, I just feel like we're wasting a lot of paper. And you know what, it's like, I know we all need the information, I think the information is so valuable. I wanna figure out a better way. I was actually hoping that, we created a public Dropbox, so that we can have both public Dropbox, so people can look at things if they want to, as well as see the agenda and stuff, and we do it around the same time. Maybe for Plum, we can do something similar, so that maybe there's a Plum kind of Dropbox, but that we could also, so if there is a notice saying, hey, there's more information, we can do something. But I'm really concerned about bringing stacks of paper. I'm lugging stacks of paper. It's really heavy. I mean, it's like I'm going to the NC office. I'm running out of paper. I can't make copies. It's just bothering me. So I want to come up with a better solution. I just don't know what the
Do we
solution is.
have money for professional?
Oh, I'm also, just coming in, recently, I was just astounded by just how much paper I feel is being
I know, I hate
generated
it.
and
Well,
that then has to
Might I
be-
make a suggestion?
So I have a suggestion
Oh, yes,
too.
yes.
I was just wondering if we could have a projector, or so that we could have the items projected onto a wall, or something like that, so that everyone in the room can see what's being discussed, and you don't have to have a piece of paper in front of you.
But I think we had 130 pieces of paper today in your whole board pack with everything. I think even flashing up 100 pages.
It's too much.
It's too much, it's too hard to absorb. So I'm thinking that it's really more, we have to also reduce the amount of paper that we have at the board meetings, even if we have full sets that are available online or on the cloud or whatever.
One thing that would help.
I'm just not sure how to get it done.
One thing that might help, we had a whole bunch of duplicates in those 130 pages. I mean, I saw the same project reports again and again. So if we had one file somewhere online where we could print out everything we needed for the meeting, right before the meeting, that would work for me.
Well, I would suggest that since we have $33,000 in an outreach budget
Buy
now,
more paper.
well, I would actually suggest that we buy the cheapest tablets we can for 15 board seats and keep them locked up with the camera. Why can't it be an NC supply? Not for anybody to have, and we could have a public one actually that people can access that way.
But we'll always also have, like, if we had a few extra, you mean like a tablet so that people.
So you could look at the agenda and just give it back at the end.
There are like 88.
Courtrooms do it now.
There are like 88. I know. Listen, I'll look into it.
Okay.
Because
I'm
I
just-
think it's an interesting idea and we live in the 21st century, so I will find out. But just off the top of my head, from all the conversations I've had, my inclination is that there are going to be a lot of issues, including ADA compliance and people's issues seeing screens or whatever it is. That aside, you do need at least one public copy. You need copies for the public when it's paper, which you have.
We do.
So the online stuff is great, but I think really the spirit of what you're saying that I really agree with is just having less to begin with in the packet, to the extent possible. Just like whether that's a summary of a project with, you know, whatever.
We also don't go through, we are not gonna go through 133 pieces.
No, I mean,
in the, you know,
the stuff
so
coming-
if we could
Yeah.
just project the stuff that everybody in the room needs to see, and also, couldn't we print out our own?
Well, I always ask, I used to always ask, and honestly, I never really got a response. So I asked for maybe 6 months when I first came on board, and I realized it just wasn't happening. So maybe it'll happen in a different time now.
Why don't you just say you're going to do 6 copies for the board, and 2 people can share, unless someone has a
Well,
special
I think
request.
that the stuff coming out of particularly Plum, where we have most of the papers, we shouldn't have to revisit everything that Plum looked at. That's the purpose
That's
of
the
Plum.
point of Plum.
The purpose is that you guys have looked at the plans, you've made some factual determinations. Your motions are usually pretty detailed, and all that needs to happen is that the Plum committee members need to be able to answer those questions. We don't need to look at all that stuff. Jay Handel.
Well, I guess I have to respectfully disagree, because I think what we've seen over the last 3 months is 90% of the Plum items that come through get changed. You know, either rejected or changed. And I, myself, having sat on Plum for a couple of years, and as a board member now in my 11th year, I like to read and know what I'm voting on, as opposed to doing it blindly.
Right, but do you need it printed out?
I print it out. I print my own
Yeah.
out. I don't need anyone to print it out for
Okay.
me, but I print it out myself.
But also
Yes.
developers give you extraneous stuff and they don't give you the things that you actually need. That's one of the problems.
Well, that may be true, but that doesn't change the board packet.
Right.
Because if the stuff that we don't need it here, we don't need it at the Plum committee, I don't need green eggs and ham. Like,
I'd like to
you
have-
don't need it anyplace.
I'd like to have access to all, yeah, email
Right.
it to me, but I'm surprised when it's emailed to me and then I show up and it's all printed out again.
Okay.
You know, because you know,
But
I look
part of that is like public access, like if we don't bring it, then we're not doing the right thing with public stakeholders.
I
So,
understand with the
yeah.
public stakeholders, you can have a couple packets back there for the public to go through or whatever you need. But to print out all of this for all of us again, after you've emailed it to us,
Well, I only brought 6,
In
so
advance,
that was,
okay.
you know, and
Yeah, we'll just do 6
that
in the
was-
future.
But I don't know, you know, it's like when I didn't have enough, people complain. When I had too much, people complain. So I just kind of want to leave things like that. I don't have an answer.
we should be put on notice that we're not
Well,
gonna
you
get
know what,
this.
Naomi? I brought my tablet tonight because you said you were only bringing 6 copies. If you ask if we want to print it out, if I have the option of you bringing me a paper copy, I'm going to go ahead and let you bring me a paper copy. If you say you're not bringing a paper copy, so you better have your own, then I'll bring my tablet.
No, not everybody has
I don't have a
access to
tablet,
it.
No, I understand.
Not everyone has access to it.
I
so-
understand.
How about bring 6?
Well, that's exactly.
How about
what
we
it
don't
is.
have 100-page packets?
How about everybody print their own, bring 2
What else?
copies, one for the general public, one to sit in the middle of the table that can be passed up and down, and let everybody be big boys and girls and bring their own stuff.
But we have $33,000 in the bank. Somebody else-
You know what? when
Maybe we can get somebody to sit and read it to us throughout the meeting.
Hey,
You can just pay
Naomi,
this person.
can we have a copy depot run the copies instead of you having to do that?
You know, I'll be
'Cause some
really,
of-
well, that's why we have an NC office. I don't mind doing the copies. I can.
It's a waste of
yeah,
paper.
it's-
It's
I
a
hate
waste
it.
of
I
amount of
hate the
paper it's
paper.
generating.
You know, it's like, it feels like, you know, we're trying to do
Unread,
trees.
man.
Let's try to do trees. Let's kind of, you know.
pages.
Jamie, will you read to me?
Well, then
No,
after
Ron,
after
no.
tonight's meeting, have everybody email you, Naomi, and say if you want packets in the future or not.
No, I
Well, I
wanna,
could send you that right now.
I do wanna limit the amount of,
We need to be getting stuff that is important and relevant to the motion
Yeah.
that will actually be looked at in conjunction with the motion.
Yeah.
That's
And I
what's
also-
necessary.
Yeah, and like, if it's 130 pages even online at a PDF,
It's
you're
ridiculous.
scrolling
Yeah.
through so, right?
no,
So-
we split that. Like
Yeah.
the board packet, I
Right.
combined PDF, but like for the separate items, I have separate PDF. If people go on the public Dropbox, and I had it, this time I started doing it by assigning agenda items, so it's easier to access, easier to see, but still, come on, how many people really do that? Really? Come on, you know.
How about next meeting, everybody will bring an idea on how to reduce the paper.
Yes.
load.
That's a
Oh, I
great
like
idea.
that. You
Yeah.
are on fire tonight, Daniel. I
Yes,
told you.
Danilo.
All right, I'll expect some
That's
amazing
everyone's
answers.
homework.
Thank you.
Is the most important motion happening?
Move to adjourn.